Hello. Hello, hello. What's up, Ben? Ben's first. What's up? What's up, motherflower? Today we're reading Leviticus. Is it cold to you?
I don't know how it is outside.
It's freezing. What's up? What's up, Devin? Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Cheers.
Is your butt hurt?
Yeah, on the wood, yeah. So I put a pillow. I put a pillow because I sit for a long time. And it hurts my bosom. What's up, what's up? Oh my goodness, I'm not your dad, bro. Get out of here. What's up, man? We definitely got that, Devin. The fire of God to warm us up with a holy fire. Come on, yes. Jesus. Come on, Jesus. Come on, come on, come on. Yes. What's up, y'all? What are y'all doing out there? Happy Saturday. Happy Saturday. Get it. Hello, Kevin. Hi, Kevin. Hi. Hello, Kevin. How you doing? How you doing out there, Kevin? How you doing? How you doing? Oh, my goodness. You're welcome. Donald Duck is in the house. Welcome, Donald Duck. P.S. Hello. I'm here now. Donald Duck's here. Yes, bro. Is that permanent? Yes. Raul? Raul. Uh-huh. Oh, what's up, Pooja? Pooja, what's up? Alex, I don't know how to say that. I woke up in the morning feeling like what? Oh my goodness, that's demonic. That's demonic. That's crazy. That's crazy, bro. That's crazy. Do I go out like this? Well, of course. I gotta go to the store, you know. They don't keep me in a dungeon all day. Yeah, you know, I got errands to do. I gotta go, you know, go to the store, you know, go grocery shopping, meet people. Yeah, definitely. Hey, what's up, Mom? How's it going, Ma? Hello, Ma. AI, peace. AI. I have no idea how many tattoos I have, but I have a lot of tattoos. Yes, I do. What's up, Michael? What's up? What's up? Read the comments. Ooh. Well, hello there. What is wrong with you? You're not the same. Mr. Clownface. That's I never heard that one. Hey, Mr. Clownface. Hi. Hey. That's funny. Hey, Mr. Clownface. Hi. From Orange County, California. Orange County, California. Yeah. Oh, thank you. Dude, did you guys see the Mike Tyson fight? Oh my gosh, bro. It was so depressing, bro. It was depressing. The Mike Tyson fight was depressing. Oh gosh. It's horrible. It's horrible. I watched the fight and I was like, dude, this is bad, dude. This is bad. I was pissed. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. I was pissed. Yeah. What are you gonna do about that? You know? Dang. Do we have any pets? We have a fat cat. Her name is Olive. Yeah. Yes. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. What in the world? What's you? What? Hey, yeah. You're good, bro. You're good. Yeah. You have a dog? Well, hopefully it's not the puppy stage because the puppy stage is crazy. You know what I'm saying? The puppy stage is like, it'll rip up your whole house. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. Yeah. Yes, Sam. Are you? Sam, are you? Oh yes. I don't know if you know this, but Art the Clown is black and white. There's no color on him whatsoever. And no piercings and no tattoos whatsoever. So I don't know what you're talking about. You're crazy. You might be colorblind. Us clowns aren't all the same. Plus, Art doesn't even talk. He's all quiet all the time, you know? Well, Toy Story 3, why would I watch Toy Story 3? Nah. Maybe. It's been a long time since Toy Story has been a long time. I watched a lot of them when I was a kid. All right, guys, we're getting into Leviticus and the Holy Bible, the NLT version in Leviticus. Come on, let's go. Let's go read Leviticus. You guys wanted to hear it? Well, here we go. The Lord called to Moses from the tabernacle and said to him, give the following instructions to the people of Israel. When you present an animal as an offering to the Lord, you may take it from your herd of cattle or your flock of sheep and goats. If the animal you present as a burnt offering is from the herd, it must be a male with no defects. Bring it to the entrance of the tabernacle so you may be accepted by the Lord. Lay your hand on the animal's head, and the Lord will accept its death in your place to purify you, making you right with him. Then slaughter the young bull in the Lord's presence, and Aaron's sons, the priests, will present the animal's blood by splattering it against all sides of the altar that stands at the entrance of the tabernacle. Then skin the animal and cut it into pieces. The sons of Aaron, the priests, will build a wood fire on the altar. Then will arrange the pieces of the offering, including the head and the fat, on the wood burning on the altar. But the internal organs and the legs must first be washed with the water. Then the priest will burn the entire sacrifice on the altar as a burnt offering. It is a special gift, a pleasing aroma to the Lord. If the animal you present as a burnt offering is from the flock, it may be either a sheep or a goat, but it must be a male with no defects. Slaughter the animal on the north side of the altar in the Lord's presence. And Aaron's sons, the priests, will splatter its blood against all sides of the altar. Then cut the animal in pieces, and priests will arrange the pieces of the offering, including the head and fat, on the wood, burning on the altar. But the internal organs and legs must first be washed with water. Then the priest will burn the entire sacrifice on the altar as a burnt offering. It is a special gift, a pleasing aroma to the Lord. If you present a bird as a burnt offering to the Lord, choose either a turtle dove. I love that word, turtle dove. Turtle dove or a young pigeon. The priest will take the bird to the altar, wring off its head, and burn it on the altar. But first, he must drain his blood against the side of the altar. The priest must also remove the crop and the feathers and throw them in the ashes on the east side of the altar. Then, grasping the bird by its wings, the priest will tear the bird open, but without tearing it apart. Then he will burn it as a burnt offering on the wood burning on the altar. It is a special gift, a pleasing aroma to the Lord. Leviticus chapter 2. Leviticus chapter 2. Let's go. Come on, somebody. I'm reading the Holy Bible, Leviticus chapter 2. Procedures for the grain offerings. When you present grain as an offering to the Lord, the offering must consist of choice flour. You are to pour olive oil on it, sprinkle it with fragrance, and bring it to Aaron's sons, the priest. The priest would scoop out a handful of the flour, moistened with oil, together with all the frankincense, and burn this representative portion on the altar. It is a special gift, a pleasing aroma to the Lord. The rest of the grain of fearing or offering will then be given to Aaron and his sons. This offering will be considered a most holy part of the special gifts presented to the Lord. If your offering is a grain of fear offering baked in an oven, it must be made of choice flour, but without any yeast. It may be presented in the form of thin cakes mixed with olive oil, or wafers spread with olive oil. If your grain offering is cooked on a griddle, it must be made of choice flour mixed with olive oil, but without any yeast. Break it in pieces and pour olive oil on it. It is a grain offering. If your grain offering is prepared in a pan, it must be made of a choice flour and olive oil. Yes. Yes, I was on Nord Jumper, and now you see me live. This is my channel. What's up, you? Yeah. Come on, somebody. No matter how a grain offering for the Lord has been prepared, bring it to the priest, who will present it at the altar. The priest will take a representative portion of the grain offering and burn it on the altar. It is a special gift, a pleasing aroma to the Lord. The rest of the grain offering will then be given to Aaron and his sons as their food. This offering will be considered a most holy part of the special gifts presented to the Lord. Do not use yeast in preparing any of the grain offerings you present to the Lord, because no yeast or honey may be burnt as a special gift presented to the Lord. You may add yeast and honey to offering of the first crops of your harvest, but these must never be offered on the altar as a pleasing aroma to the Lord. Season all your grain offerings with salt to remind you of God's eternal covenant. Never forget to add salt to your grain offerings. If you present a grain offering to the Lord from the first portion of your harvest, bring fresh grain that is coarsely ground and roasted on a fire. Put olive oil on this grain offering, and sprinkle it with frankincense. The priest will take a representative portion of the grain, moistened with oil, together with all the frankincense, and burn it as special gift presented to the Lord. Come on, chapter 3, Leviticus chapter 3. Hold on, let me get the other one. Hold on. See how hard this one is. This is NIV. This is NIV. Yeah, this is the NIV. But it's little words, though. These are tiny little words right here. Goodness gracious. This is tiny, dude. Chapter 3. All right, here we go. Yeah, it's tiny, bro. Look how tiny this is. The fellowship offering. Leviticus chapter 3. If someone's offering is a fellowship offering and he offers an animal from the herd, whether male or female, he is presented before the Lord. An animal will out defect. He is to lay his hand. Man, this is tiny words. These are little words, bro. I want to get the other one. This is tiny, dude. No wonder why I got this one. So tiny, bro. That's why I got the big words. The big words are better. Come on, let's go. All right. If you present an animal from the herd as a peace offering to the Lord, it may be a male or female. This is chapter 3, Leviticus chapter 3. Birth defects, no defects. Lay your hand on the animal's head and slaughter it at the entrance of the tabernacle. Then Aaron's sons, the priest, will splatter his blood against all sides of the altar. The priest must present part of this peace offering as a special gift to the Lord. This includes all the fat around the internal organs, the 2 kidneys, and the fat around them near the lions and the long lobe of the liver. These must be removed with the kidneys, and Aaron's sons will burn them on the top of the burnt offerings, on the wood offerings, or the wood burning on the altar. It is a special gift, a pleasing aroma to the Lord. Come on, Jesus. Let's go. Leviticus chapter 3, 6. If you present an animal from the flock as a peace offering to the Lord, it may be a male or female, but it must have no defects. If you present a sheep as your offering, bring it to the Lord, lay your hand on its head, and slaughter from all the tabernacle. Aaron's sons will then splatter the sheep's blood against all sides of the altar. The priest must present the fat of this peace offering as a special gift to the Lord. This includes the fat of the broad tail cut off near the backbone, all the fat around the internal organs, the 2 kidneys, and the fat around them near the loins, and the long lobe of the liver. These must be removed with the kidneys, and the priest will burn them on the altar. It is a special gift of the food presented to the Lord. If you present a goat as your offering, bring it to the Lord, lay your hand on its head, and slaughter it in front of the tabernacle. Aaron's sons will then splatter the goat's blood against all sides of the altar. The priest must present part of this offering as a special gift to the Lord. This includes all the fat around the internal organs, the 2 kidneys, and the fat around them near the loins, and the long lobe of the liver. These must be removed with the kidneys, and the priest will burn them on the altar. It is a special gift of food, a pleasing aroma to the Lord. All the fat belongs to the Lord. You must never eat any fat or blood. This is a permanent law for you, and it must be observed from generation to generation wherever you live. Come on, somebody, let's go. Jesus, chapter 4, Leviticus, chapter 4. Oh, my goodness. Procedures for the sin offering. Tell me why, cause I love being a clown. Yeah, huh, yeah, huh, yeah. Then the Lord said to Moses, give the following instructions to the people of Israel. This is how you are to deal with those who sin unintentionally by doing anything that violates one of the Lord's commands. If the high priest sins, bringing guilt upon the entire community, he must give a sin offering for the sin he has committed. He must present to the Lord a young bull with no defects. He must bring the bull to the Lord at the entrance of the tabernacle. They lay his hand on the bull's head and slaughter it before the Lord. The high priest will then take some to the bull's blood into the tabernacle, dip his finger in the blood, and sprinkle it 7 times before the Lord in front of the inner curtain of the sanctuary. The priest will then put some of the blood on the horns of the altar for a fragrant incense that stands in the Lord's presence inside the tabernacle. He will pour out the rest of the bull's blood and the base of the eternal for the burnt offerings at the entrance of the tabernacle. Then the priests must remove all the fat of the bull to be offered as a sin offering. This includes all the fat around the internal organs, the 2 kidneys, and the fat around them near the loins and the long lobe of the liver. He must remove these along with the kidneys, just as he does with the cattle offered as a peace offering, and burn them on the altar of burnt offerings. But he must take whatever is left of the bull, its hide, meat, head, legs, internal organs, and dung, and carry it away to the place outside the camp that is ceremonially clean, the place where the ashes are dumped. There on the ash heap, he will burn it on a wood fire. Come on, Jesus, let's go. Yes. If the entire Israelite community sins by violating one of the Lord's commands, but the people don't realize it, they are still guilty. When they become aware of their sin, the people must bring a young bull as an offering for their sin and present it before the tabernacle. The elders of the community must then lay their hands on the bull's head and slaughter it before the Lord. The high priest will then take some of the bull's blood into the tabernacle, dip his finger in the blood, and sprinkle it 7 times before the Lord in front of the inner curtain. He will then put some of the blood on the horns of the altar for fragrant incense that stands in the Lord's presence inside the tabernacle. He will pour out the rest of the blood at the base of the altar for burnt offerings at the entrance of the tabernacle. Then the priest must remove all the animal's fat and burn it on the altar, just as he does with the bull offered as a sin offering for the high priest. Through this process, the priest will purify the people, making them right with the Lord, and they will be forgiven. Then the priest must take what is left of the bull and carry it outside the camp and burn it there, just as it is done with the sin offering for the high priest. The offering is for the sin of the entire congregation of Israel. If one of Israel's leaders sins by violating one of the commands of the Lord his God, but doesn't analyze it, he is still guilty. Ooh. Well, come on. Don't you forget that Jesus died for our sins, right? He died for all of our sins, yes. So no matter what we've done, we say, Father God, forgive me for all of our sins, and our sins are forgiven. Yes. Yes. We're not supposed to dwell in the past, but we're supposed to move forward, right? But the demons want us to always go in the past. And, oh, you did this, you did this. You sinned. We all sin. Come on, yes. Yes. Well, if you're talking about the marks, then why don't you... No, we don't have to sacrifice animals anymore, right? No, we don't sacrifice animals no more. Because Jesus died for all of our sins, right? Come on, somebody, let's go. Yes. We're going to get to Leviticus. Yes, I know. Yes, I know. Yes. All right, here we go. We're reading all Leviticus. We are. Yes, we are. Oh, my goodness. Where are we at? Where are we at? Where are we at? If any of the common people sin by violating one of the Lord's commands, but then or they don't realize it, they are still guilty. When they become aware of their sin, they must bring as an offering for their sin a female goat with no defects. They must lay a hand on the head of the sin offering and slaughter it at the place where burnt offerings are slaughtered. Then the priest will dip his finger in the blood and put it in his horns on the altar for burnt offerings. He will pour out the rest of the blood at the base of the altar. Then he must remove all the goat's fat, just as he does with the fat of the piece of offering. He will burn the fat on the altar, and it will be a pleased aroma to the Lord through the process. Yes. The process, the priest will purify the people, making them right with the Lord, and they will be forgiven. If the people bring a sheep as their sin offering, it must be a female with no defects. They must lay a hand on the head of the sin offerings and slaughter it at the place where burnt offerings are slaughtered. Then the priest will dip his finger in the blood of the sin offerings and put it on the horns of the altar for burnt offerings. He will pour out the rest of the blood at the base of the altar. Then he must remove all the sheep's fat, just as he does with the fat of the sheep presented as a peace offering. He will burn the fat on the altar on top of the special gifts presented to the Lord. Through his process, the priest will purify the people from their sin, making them right with the Lord, and they will be forgiven. Come on, Jesus, let's go. Yes. Chapter 5, Leviticus chapter 5. Sins requiring a sin offering. Chapter 5, Leviticus, and the NLT version. Yes. Oh, yes. If you are called to testify about something you have seen or that you know about, it is sinful to refuse to testify, and you will be punished for your sin. Or suppose you ungodly or unknowingly touch something that is ceremonially unclean, such as the carcass of the unclean animal. When you realize what you have done, you must admit your defilement and your guilt. This is true whether it is a wild animal, a domestic animal, or an animal that scurries along the ground. Yes. Or suppose you unknowingly touch something that makes a person unclean. When you realize what you have done, you must admit your guilt. Or suppose you make a foolish vow of any kind, whether its purpose is for good or for bad. When you realize its foolishness, you must admit your guilt. When you become aware of your guilt in any of these ways, you must confess your sin. Then you must bring to the Lord as the penalty for your sins, sin a female from the flock, either a sheep or a goat. This is a sin offering with which the priest will purify you from your sin, making you right with the Lord. But if you cannot afford to bring a sheep, you may bring to the Lord 2 turtle doves or 2 young pigeons as the penalty for your sin. One of the birds will be for a sin offering and the other for a burnt offering. You must bring them to the priest, who will present the firstborn as a sin offering. He will wring its neck, but without serving its head from the body. Then he will sprinkle some of the blood of the sin offerings against the sides of the altar, and the rest of the blood will be drained out in the base of the altar. This is an offering for sin. The priest will then prepare the second bird as a burnt offering, following all the procedures that they have been prescribed. Yes. Yes. Through this process, the priest will purify you from your sin, making you right with the Lord, and you will be forgiven. Yes. If you cannot afford to bring 2 turtle doves or 2 young pigeons, you may bring 2 quarts of choice flour for your sin offering. Since it is an offering for sin, you must not moisten it with olive oil or put any frankincense on it. Take the flour to the priest, who will scoop out a handful as a representative portion. He will burn it on the altar on top of this special gifts presented to the Lord. It is an offering for sin. Though the process, the priest will purify those who are guilty of any of these sins, making them right with the Lord, and they will be forgiven. The rest of the flour will belong to the priest, just as with the grain offering. Yes. All right. Procedures for the guilt offering. Leviticus. Then the Lord said to Moses, if one of you commits a sin by unintentionally defiling the Lord's sacred property, you must bring a guilt offering to the Lord. The offering must be your own ram with no defects, or you may buy one equal value with the silver as measured by the weight of the secretary shekel. You must make restitution for the sacred property you have harmed by paying for the loss plus an additional 20% when you give the payment to the priest. He will purify you with the ram sacrifice as a guilt offering, making you right with the Lord, and you will be forgiven. Suppose you sin by violating one of the Lord's commands. Even if you are unaware of what you have done, you are guilty and will be punished for your sin. For a guilt offering, you must bring to the priest your own ram with no defects, or you may buy one of the equal value. Through the process, the priest will purify you from your unintentional sin, making you right with the Lord, and you will be forgiven. This is a guilt offering for you have been guilty of an office against the Lord. Come on, Jesus, let's go. Yes, Jesus. Yes. Chapter 6, Leviticus chapter 6. We're going. Let's go. Leviticus chapter 6, signs requiring a guilt offering. This is the NLT version. Leviticus chapter 6. Then the Lord said to Moses, suppose one of you sins against your associate and is unfaithful to the Lord. Suppose you cheat in a deal involving a security deposit, or you steal and commit fraud, or you find lost property and lie about it, or you lie while swearing to tell the truth, or you commit any other such sin. If you have sinned in any of these ways, you are guilty. You must give back whatever you stole or the money you took by extortion, or the security deposit, or the lost property you found, or anything obtained by swearing falsely. You must make restitution by paying the full price plus an additional 20% to the person you have harmed. On the same day, you must present a guilt offering as a guilt offering to the Lord. You must bring to the priest your own ram with no defects, or you may buy one of the equal value. Through this process, this priest will purify you before the Lord, making you right with him, and you will be forgiven for any of these sins you have committed. Oh, yeah. Further instructions for the burnt offering. Then the Lord said to Moses, give Aaron and his sons the following instructions regarding the burnt offering. The burnt offering must be left on top of the altar until the next morning, and the fire on the altar must be kept burning all night. In the morning, after the priest on duty has put on his official linen clothing, a linen undergarments, he must clean out the ashes of the burnt offering and put them beside the altar. Then he must take off these garments, change back into his regular clothes, and carry the ashes outside the camp to a place that is ceremonially clean. Meanwhile, the fire on the altar must be kept burning. It must never go out. Each morning, the priest will add fresh wood to the fire and arrange the burnt offering on it. He will then burn the fat of the peace offering on it. Broski, hello. Broski, we're reading Leviticus. Leviticus. I've already read all of Leviticus. I know. It says all the stuff you're talking about. I know. But that was a long time ago. This is my testimony. I know. These are the instructions regarding the grain offering. Aaron's son must present this offering to the Lord in front of the altar. A priest on the duty will take the grain offering, a handful of the choice flour moistened with olive oil. Together with all the frankincense, he will burn this representative portion on the altar as a pleasing aroma to the Lord. Aaron and his sons may eat the rest of the flour, but it must be baked without yeast and eaten in a sacred place within the courtyard of the tabernacle. Remember, it must never be prepared with yeast. I have given it to the priests as their share of the special gifts present to me, like the sin offering and the guilt offering. It is mostly holy. Any of Aaron's male descendants may eat from the special gifts presented to the Lord. This is their permanent right from the generation to generation. Anyone or anything that touches these offerings will become holy. Come on, Jesus. Procedures for the orientation offering. Then the Lord said to Moses, on the day Aaron and his sons are anointed, they must present to the Lord the standard grain offering of 2 quarts of choice flour, half to be offered in the morning and half to be offered in the evening. It must be carefully mixed with olive oil and cooked on a griddle. Then slice this grain offering and present it as a pleasing aroma to the Lord. In each generation, the high priest who succeeds Aaron must prepare the same offering. It belongs to the Lord and must be burnt up completely. This is a permanent law. All such grain offerings of a priest must be burnt up eternally. None of it may be eaten. Yes. Further instructions for the sin offering. Then the Lord said to Moses, give Aaron his sons the following instructions regarding the sin offering. The animal given as an offering for sin is a most holy offering, and it must be slaughtered in the Lord's presence at the place where the burnt offerings are slaughtered. The priest who offers the sacrifice as a sin offering must eat his portion in a sacred place within the courtyard of the tabernacle. Anyone or anything that touches the sacrificial meat will become holy. If any of the sacrificial blood splatters on a person's clothing, the soiled garment must be washed in a sacred place. If a clay pot is used to boil the sacrificial meat, it must then be broken. If a bronze pot is used, it must be scattered and thoroughly rinsed with water. Any male from a priest's family may eat from this offering. It is most holy. But the offering for sin may not be eaten if its blood was brought into the tabernacle as an offering for the purification in the holy place. It must be completely burnt with fire. Come on, Jesus, let's go. Chapter 7, Leviticus chapter 7. Yes. Come on, Jesus. Come on, Jesus. Yes. All right, chapter 7, further instructions for the guilt offering. This is Leviticus chapter 7, NLT version Bible. These are the instructions for the guilt offerings. It is most holy. The animal sacrifice as a guilt offering must be slaughtered at the place where the burnt offerings are slaughtered, and its blood must be splattered against all sides of the altar. The priest will then offer all its fat on the altar, including the fat of the broad tail, the fat around the terminal organs, the 2 kidneys, and the fat around them near the loins and the long lobe of the liver. These are to be removed with the kidneys, and the priest will burn them on the altar as a special gift presented to the Lord. This is the guilt offering. Any male from a priest family may eat the meat. It must be eaten in a sacred place, for it is most holy. Yes. The same instructions apply to both the guilt offerings and the sin offering. Both belong to the priest who uses them to purify someone, making that person right with the Lord. In the case of the burnt offering, the priest may keep the hide of the sacrifice animal. Any grain offering that has been baked in an oven, prepared in a pan, or cooked on a griddle belongs to the priest who presents it. All other grain offerings, whether made of dry flour or flour moistened with olive oil, are to be shared equally among all the priests, the descendants of Aaron. Yes. Further instructions for the peace offering. This is Leviticus chapter 7:11. What's up, babe? What are you getting? What are you getting, babe?
I'm looking for that book, the bloodline book.
Oh, really? Yeah, the bloodline book. You're reading right now?
I'm gonna look at it.
Get it. These are the instructions regarding the different kinds of peace offerings that may be prepared sentence to the Lord. If you present your peace offering as an expression of thanksgiving, the unusual animal sacrifice must be accompanied by various kinds of bread made with yeast. The thin cakes mixed with olive oil, wafers spread with oil, and cakes made of choice flour mixed with olive oil. This peace offering of thanksgiving must also be accompanied by loaves of bread made with yeast. One of each kind of bread must be presented as a gift to the Lord. It will then belong to the priest who splatters the blood of the peace offering against the altar. The meat of the peace offering of thanksgiving must be eaten on the same day it is offered. None of it may be saved for the next morning. If you bring an offering to fulfill a vow or as a voluntary offering, the meat must be eaten on the same day the sacrifice is offered. Yes. Come on, Jesus. Come on, Jesus. Yes. Jesus. Jesus. Come on, Jesus. Oh, yes. But whatever is left over may be eaten on the second day. Any meat left over until the third day must be completely burnt up. If any of the meat from the peace offering is eaten on the third day, the person who presented it will not be accepted by the Lord. You will receive no credit for offering it, but then the meat will be contaminated. If you eat it, you will be punished for your sin. Come on, Jesus. Come on, Jesus. Come on. Yes. Meat that touches anything ceremonially unclean may not be eaten. It must be completely burnt up. The rest of the meat may be eaten, but only by people who are ceremonially clean. If you are ceremonially unclean and you eat meat from a peace offering that was presented to the Lord, you will be cut off from the community. If you touch anything that is unclean, whether it is human defilement or an unclean animal or any other unclean, detestable thing, and then eat meat from a peace offering presented to the Lord, you will be cut off from the community. The forbidden blood and fat. Then the Lord said to Moses, give the following instructions to the people of Israel. You must never eat fat, whether from cattle, sheep, or goats. The fat of an animal found dead or torn to pieces by wild animals must never be eaten, though it may be used for any other purpose. Anyone who eats fat from the animal presented as a special gift to the Lord will be cut off from the community. No matter where you live, you must never consume the blood of any bird or animal. Anyone who consumes blood will be cut off from the community. Yes, Jesus, what's up? A portion for the priests. Yes. Yes. Come on, Jesus. Let's go, Jesus. We're getting through Leviticus. Yes. Then the Lord said to Moses, give the following instructions to the people of Israel. When you present a peace offering to the Lord, bring part of it as a gift to the Lord. Present it to the Lord with your own hands as a special gift to the Lord. Yes. Come on, let's go. Yes. There you go. We're getting people. Get them out of here. Present it to the Lord with your own hands as a special gift to the Lord. Bring the fat of the animal together with the breast and lift up the breast as a special offering to the Lord. Then the priest will burn the fat on the altar, but the breast will belong to the Aaron and his descendants. Give the right thigh of your peace offering to the priest as a gift. The right thigh must always be given to the priest who offers the blood and the fat of the peace offering, for I have reserved the breast of the special offering and the right thigh of the sacred offering, or the priest. It is a permanent right of Aaron and his descendants to share in the peace of offerings brought by the people of Israel. This is their rightful share. The special gifts presented to the Lord have been reserved for Aaron and his descendants. From the time they were set apart to serve the Lord as priests, on the day they were anointed, the Lord committed the Israelites to give these portions to the priests as their permanent share from generation to generation. Come on, somebody. Yes, Jesus. These are the instructions for the burnt offerings, the grain offerings, the sin offerings, and the guilt offering, as well as the ordination offering and the peace offering. The Lord gave these instructions to Moses at Mount Sinai when he commanded the Israelites to present their offerings to the Lord in the wilderness of Sinai. Chapter 8, Leviticus chapter 8. Oh, yes. Yes, chapter 8. Ordination of the priest, Leviticus chapter 8, the NLT version. Come on, Jesus. Then the Lord said to Moses, bring Aaron and his sons along with their sacred garments, the anointing oil, the bowl for the sin offering, the 2 rams, and the basket of bread made without yeast, and call the entire community of Israel together at the entrance of the tabernacle. So Moses followed the Lord's instructions, and the whole community assembled at the tabernacle entrance. Moses announced to them, this is what the Lord has commanded us to do. Then he presented Aaron and his sons and washed them with water. He put the official tunic on Aaron and tied the sash around his waist. He dressed him in the robe, placed the ephod on him, and attached the ephod securely with its decorative sash. Then Moses placed the chest piece on Aaron and put the Urim and the Thummim inside it. He placed the turban on Aaron's head and attached the gold medallion, the badge of holiness, to the front of the turban, just as the Lord had commanded him. Come on, Jesus. Come on, Jesus. No, he's not. He's a liar and a deceiver. Yes. Yes. Here we go. Here we go. Chapter 8, Ordination of the Priest. Did we already read that? Oh, yeah. All right, so then Moses took the anointing oil and anointed the tabernacle and everything in it, making them holy. He sprinkled the oil on the altar 7 times, anointing it and all its utensils, as well as the wash basin and the stand, making them holy. Then he poured some of the anointing oil on Aaron's head and anointed him and marking him holy for his work. Next, Moses presented Aaron's sons. He clothed them in their tunics, tied their sashes around them, and put their special head coverings on them, just as the Lord has commanded him. Then Moses presented the bull for the sin offering. Aaron and his sons laid their hands on the bull's head, and Moses slaughtered it. Moses took some of the blood, and with his finger he put it on the 4 horns of the altar to purify it. He poured out the rest of the blood at the base of the altar through his process. He made the altar holy by purifying it. Then Moses took all the fat around the internal organs, the long lobe of the liver, and the 2 kidneys, and the fat around them, and he burned it all on the altar. He took the rest of the bull, including its hide, meat, and dung, and buried it on fire outside the camp, just as the Lord had commanded him. Come on, Jesus. Let's go. Jesus. Yes. And, right, here we go. Then Moses presented the ram for the burnt offering. Aaron and his sons laid their hands on the ram's head, and Moses slaughtered it. Then Moses took the ram's blood and splattered it against all sides of the altar. Then he cut the ram into pieces, and he burned the head, some of its pieces, and the fat on the altar. After washing the internal organs and the legs with water, Moses burnt the entire ram on the altar as a burnt offering. It was a pleasing aroma, a special gift presented to the Lord, just as the Lord had commanded him. Then Moses presented the other ram, which was the ram of the ordination. Aaron and his sons laid their hands on the ram's head, and Moses slaughtered it. Then Moses took some of its blood and applied it to the lobe of Aaron's right ear, the lobe of his right hand, and the big toe of his right foot. Next, Moses presented Aaron's sons and applied some of the blood to the lobes of their right ears, the thumbs of their right hands, and the big toe of their right feet. He then splattered the rest of the blood against all sides of the altar. Next, Moses took the fat, including the fat of the broad tail, the fat around the internal organs, the long lobe of the liver, and the two kidneys, and the fat around them, along with the right thigh. On top of these, he placed a thin cake of bread made without yeast. A cake of bread mixed with olive oil, and a wafer spread with olive oil. All these were taken from the basket of bread made without yeast that was placed in the Lord's presence. He put all these in hands of Aaron and his sons, and he lifted these gifts as special offering to the Lord. Moses then he took all the offerings back from them and burned them on the altar on top of the burnt offering. This was the ordination offering. It was a pleasing aroma, a special gift presented to the Lord. Then Moses took the breast and lifted it up as a special offering to the Lord. This was Moses' portion of the ram of ordination, just as the Lord had commanded him. Next, Moses took some of the anointing oil and some of the blood that was on the altar, and he sprinkled them on Aaron and his garments, and on his sons and their garments. In this way, he made Aaron and his sons and their garments holy. Then Moses said to Aaron and his sons, "Boil the remaining meat of the offerings at the tabernacle entrance and eat it there along with the bread that is in the basket of the offerings for the ordination, just as I commanded. When I said Aaron and his sons will eat it, any meat or bread that is left over must then be burned up. You must not leave the tabernacle entrance for 7 days, for that is when the ordination ceremony will be completed." Everything we have done today was commanded by the Lord in order to purify you, making you right with him. Now stay at the entrance of the tabernacle day and night for 7 days and do everything the Lord requires. If you fail to do this, you will die, for this is what the Lord has commanded. So Aaron and his sons did everything the Lord had commanded through Moses. Come on, Jesus, let's go. Yes, Jesus. Chapter 9, Leviticus chapter 9. The NLT version, Leviticus chapter 9. The priests begin their work. After the ordination ceremony on the 8th day, Moses called together Aaron and his sons and the elders of Israel. He said to Aaron, "Take a young bull for a sin offering and ram for a burnt offering, both without defects, and present them to the Lord. Then tell the Israelites, take a male goat for a sin offering, and take a calf and a lamb, both a year old and without defects. For a burnt offering, also take a bull and a ram for a peace offering, and flour moistened with olive oil for a grain offering. And present all these offerings to the Lord, because the Lord will appear to you today." So the people presented all of these things at the entrance of the tabernacle, just as Moses has commanded. Then the whole community came forward and stood before the Lord. And then Moses said, "This is what the Lord has commanded you to do, so that the glory of the Lord may appear to you." Then Moses said to Aaron, "Come to the altar and sacrifice your sin offering and your burnt offering to purify yourself and the people. Then present the offerings of the people to purify them, making them right with the Lord, just as he commanded." Come on, Jesus. Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning. Hello. What's up, what's up? What's up, what's up? All right, so here we go. So Aaron went to the altar and slaughtered the calf as a sin offering for himself. His sons brought him the blood and dipped his finger in it and put it on the horns of the altar. He poured out the rest of the blood at the base of the altar. Then he burned on the altar the fat, the kidneys, and the long lobe of their liver from the sin offerings, just as the Lord had commanded Moses. Then the meat of the hide, however, he burned outside the camp. Next to Aaron, he slaughtered the animal for the burnt offerings. His sons brought him the blood, and he splattered it against all sides of the altar. Then he handed him each piece of the burnt offerings, including the head, and he burnt them on the altar. Then he washed the internal organs and the legs and burned them on the altar along with the rest of the burnt offerings. Next, Aaron presented the offerings of the people. He slaughtered the people's goats and presented it as an offering for their sin, just as he had first done with the offerings for his own sin. This is Leviticus. Come on, Jesus. What's up, Jesus? Yes, come on, Jesus. Here we go. Then he's presented the burnt offering and sacrificed it in the prescribed way. He also presented the grain offering, burning a handful of the flour mixture on the altar, in addition to the regular burnt offering for this morning. Well, let me see how many. Leviticus. How much is Leviticus? 23. Dang, I think it was like 30 chapters. Yeah. 27 chapters of Leviticus. Woo! 27 chapters. Let's go. Come on, here we go. Here we go. Then Aaron slaughtered the bull and a ram for the people's peace offerings. His sons brought him the blood, and he splattered it against all sides of the altar. Then he took the fat of the bull, then the ram, the fat of the broad tail, and from around the internal organs, along with the kidneys and the long lobes of the livers. He placed these fat portions on top of the breasts of these animals and burnt them on the altar. Aaron then lifted up the breasts and right thighs as a special offering to the Lord, just as Moses had commanded. After that, Aaron raised his hands toward the people and blessed them. Then after presenting the sin offering, the burnt offering, and the peace offering, he stepped down from the altar. Then Moses and Aaron went into the tabernacle, and when they came back out, they blessed the people again, and the glory of the Lord appeared to the whole community. Fire blazed forth from the Lord's presence, and they consumed the burnt offering and the fat on the altar. When the people saw this, they shouted with joy and fell face down on the ground. Chapter 10. Leviticus chapter 10, the sin of Nadab and Abihu. The NLT version. NLT version, chapter 10, Leviticus. Aaron's sons Nadab and Abihu put coals of fire in their incense burners and sprinkled incense over them. In this way, they disobeyed the Lord by burning before him the wrong kind of fire, different than he had commanded. So fire blazed from the Lord's presence and burned them up, and they died there before the Lord. Then Moses said to Aaron, "This is what the Lord meant." Then he said, "I will display my holiness through those who come near me. I will display my glory before all the people." Come on, Jesus. And Aaron was silent. Then Moses called for Mishael and Ephesian, Aaron's cousins, the sons of Aaron's uncle, Uzziel. He said to them, "Come forward and carry away the bodies of your relatives from in front of the sanctuary to a place outside the camp." So they came forward and picked them up by their garments and carried them out of the camp, just as Moses had commanded. Then Moses said to Aaron and his sons, Issachar and Ithamar, "Do not show grief by leaving your hair uncombed or by tearing your clothes. If you do, you will die, and the Lord's anger will strike the whole community of Israel. However, the rest of the Israelites, your relatives, may mourn because of the Lord's fiery destruction of Nadab and Abihu. But you must not leave the entrance of the tabernacle, or you will die, for you have been anointed with the Lord's anointing oil. So they did as Moses commanded. Come on, Jesus. Come on, Jesus. Instructions for priestly conduct. Then the Lord said to Aaron, you and your descendants must never drink wine or any other alcoholic drink before going into the tabernacle. If you do, you will die. This is a permanent law for you, and it must be observed from generation to generation. You must distinguish between what is sacred and what is common, between what is ceremonially unclean and what is clean. And you must teach the Israelites all the decrees that the Lord has given them through Moses. Then Moses said to Aaron and his remaining sons, Ishar and Ithmar, take what is left of the grain offering off after a portion has been presented as a special gift to the Lord, and eat it besides the altar. Make sure it contains no yeast, for it is most holy. You must eat it in a sacred place, for it has been given to you and your descendants as your portion of the special gifts presented to the Lord. These are the commands I have been given, but the breast and thigh that were lifted up as a special offering may be eaten in a place that is ceremony clean. These parts have been given to you and your descendants as your portion of the peace offerings presented by the people of Israel. You must lift up the thigh and breast as a special offering to the Lord, and along with the fat of the special gifts, these parts will belong to you and your descendants as your permanent right, just as the Lord has commanded. Moses then asked him what had happened to the goat of the sin offering. When he discovered it had been burned up, he became very angry with Ishar and Ithmar, Aaron's remaining sons. Why didn't you eat the sin of fearing in the sacred area? He demanded. It is a holy offering. The Lord has given it to you to remove the guilt of community and to purify the people, making them right with the Lord. Since the animal's blood was not brought into the holy place, you should have eaten the meat in the sacred area as I ordered you. Then Aaron answered Moses, today my sons presented both their sin offering and their burnt offering to the Lord. And yet this tragedy has happened to me. If I had eaten the people's sin offering on such a tragic day as this, would the Lord have been pleased? And when Moses heard this, he was sacrificed. Come on, Jesus. Leviticus chapter 11, ceremonially clean and unclean animals. Chapter 11, Leviticus. Ooh. In the NLT version, this is the Holy Bible. It's not a religion. It's a relationship with Jesus Christ. This is a relationship with Jesus Christ, not a religion. I'm reading the Holy Bible. The Holy Bible. That's what I'm reading. I believe in the Holy Bible. Whatever the Holy Bible says is the truth, the way, and the life. And anyone who wants eternal life has to go to the Father, and that's Jesus Christ, our Lord and Savior. Come on, Jesus. You can't go to heaven without going to the Father. Jesus, holy mighty name. Jesus Christ. It says, anyone who calls upon the name of the Lord shall be set freed. Anyone who calls upon the name of the Lord shall be set freed. Salvation, freedom. Come on, Jesus. Chapter 11, Leviticus chapter 11. Let's go. Come on, let's get this. The word is the truth, the way, and the life. So it's stronger than a two-edged sword. This is our sword. Come on. Then the Lord said to Moses and Aaron, give the following instructions to the people of Israel. Of all the land animals, these are the ones you may use for food. Ooh, bless me. Ooh. You may eat any animal that has completely split hooves and chews the cud. You may not, however, eat the following animals that have split the hooves or that chew the cud, but not both. The camel chews the cud, but does not have the split hooves. So it is ceremonially unclean for you. The hyrax chews the cud, but does not have the split hooves. so it is unclean. Then the hare chews the cud, but does not have the split hooves, so it is unclean. The pig has evenly split hooves, but does not chew the chud, so it is unclean. You may not eat the meat of these animals, or even touch their carcasses. They are a ceremony unclean for you. Of all the marine animals, these are ones you may use for food. You may eat anything from the water if it has both fins and scales, whether taken from salt water or from streams, but you must never eat animals from the sea or from the rivers that do not have both fins and scales. They are desirable to you. Applies both to the little creatures that live in shallow waters and to all creatures that live in the deep water. They will always be detestable to you. You must never eat their meat or even touch their dead bodies. Huh? Come on, Jesus. Got allergies, bro. Allergies, man. Come on. Or something. And any marine animal that does not have both fins and scales is detestable to you. These are the birds that are detestable to you. You must never eat them. The griffin, vulture, the buried vultures, the black vultures, the night falcons of all kinds, ravens of all kinds, the eagle owl, the short-eared owl, the seagull, hawks of all kinds, the little owl, the ceremony, the great owl, the barn owl, the desert owl, the Egypt vulture, the stork, herons of all kinds, the hoopoe, and all the bat. Ooh, yes. I'm talking about the Holy Bible. Come on, Jesus. Come on, Jesus. No, we're going through it. Leviticus. I started from Genesis and I'm just going through. Yeah, let's go. Yes, you must not eat wiggled and incense that walk among the ground. They are descendants to you. You may, however, eat winged insects that walk along the ground and have jointed legs so they can jump. The insects you are permitted to eat, including all kinds of locusts, bald locusts, crickets, and grasshoppers. All over the widget insects that walk along the ground are detestable to you. The fallen creatures will make you ceremonially unclean. If any of you touch their carcasses, you will be defiled until evening. If you pick up their carcasses, you must wash your clothes, and you will remain defiled until evening. Any animal that has split hooves that are not evenly divided, or that does not chew the cud, is unclean for you. If you touch the carcasses of such an animal, you will be defiled. Of the animals that walk on all fours, those that have paws are unclean. This is the Old Testament. This is not New Testament, so it's all old. You know, you know what I mean? What's up? What's up? Have paws are unclean. If you touch the carcasses of such an animal, you will be defiled until evening. If you pick up its carcasses, you must wash your clothes, and you will remain defiled until evening. These animals are unclean for you. Of all the small animals that scurry along the ground, these are unclean for you: the mole rat, the large lizards of all kinds, the gecko, the monitor lizard, the common lizard, and the sand lizard, and the ceremonial. All these small animals are unclean for you. If any of you touch these dead bodies of such animal, you will be defiled until evening. If such animal dies and falls on something, that object will be unclean. This is true whether the object is made of wood, cloth, leather, or burlap. Whatever it's used, you must dip it in water, and it will remain defiled until evening. After that, it will be ceremonially clean and may be used again. Oh my goodness. Haters gonna hate. Oh yeah. If such an animal falls into a clay pot, everything in the pot will be defiled, and the pot must be smashed. If the water from such container spills on any food, the food will be defiled, and any beverage in such container will be defiled. Any object on which the carcasses of such an animal falls will be defiled. If it is an oven or a hearth, it must be destroyed, for it is defiled, and you must treat it accordingly. However, if the carcass of such animal falls into a spring or a cistern, the water will still be clean, but anyone who touches the carcasses will be defiled. If the carcasses falls on seed grain to the plant in the field, the seed will still be considered clean. But if the seed is wet when the carcasses fall on it, the seed will be defiled. Yes. If any animal you are permitted to eat dies and you touch its carcass, you will be defiled and until evening. If you eat any of its meat or carry away its carcass, you must wash your clothes and you will remain defiled until evening. All small animals that scurry along the ground are detestable and you must never eat them. This includes all animals that slither along on their bellies, as well as those with 4 legs and those with many feet. All such animals that scurry along the ground are detestable, and you must never eat them. Do not defile yourself by touching them. You must not make yourselves ceremonially unclean because of them. For I am the Lord your God. You must consecrate yourselves and be holy, because I am holy. So do not defile yourselves with any of these small animals that scurry along the ground. For I, the Lord, am the one who brought you up from the land of Egypt, that I might be your God. Therefore you must be holy, because I am holy. Come on, Jesus. We're getting there. Leviticus. These are the instructions regarding the land, animals, birds, marine creatures, animals that scurry along the ground. By these instructions, you will know what is unclean and clean, and which animals may be eaten and which may be not be eaten. We're going to chapter 12, Leviticus chapter 12. Purification after childbirth. Let's go. The Lord said to Moses, give the following instructions to the people of Israel. If a woman becomes pregnant and gives birth to a son, she will be ceremonially unclean for 7 days, just as she is unclean during her menstrual period. On the 8th day, the boy's foreskin must be circumcised. After waiting 33 days, she will be purified from the bleeding of the childbirth. During this time of purification, she must not touch anything that is set apart as holy, and she must not enter the sanctuary until her time of purification is over. If a woman gives birth to a daughter, she will be ceremonially unclean for 2 weeks, just as she is unclean during her ceremonial period or menstrual period. After waiting 66 days, she will be purified from the bleeding of childbirth. When the time of purification is complete for either a son or a daughter, the woman must bring a 1-year-old lamb for a burnt offering and young pigeon or turtle dove for a purification offering. She must bring her offerings to the priest at the entrance of the tabernacle. The priest will then present them to the Lord to purify her. Then she will be ceremonially clean again after her bleeding at childbirth. These are the instructions for a woman after the birth of a son or a daughter. If a woman cannot afford to bring a lamb, she must bring 2 turtle doves or 2 young pigeons. One will be for the burnt offering and the other for the purification offering. The priest will sacrifice them to purify her, and she will be ceremonially clean. Come on, Jesus. Chapter 13, Leviticus chapter 13. Let's go. Serious skin diseases. The Lord said to Moses and Aaron, if anyone has a swelling or a rash, or discolored skin that might develop into a serious skin disease, that person must be brought to Aaron and the priest, or to the one of his sons. The priest will... That scared the crap out of me. Dude, where's that? Oh, listen to me. Hold on. The iPad. That's creepy. The iPad. Oh my gosh. It was talking to me. The iPad was talking to me. Oh my goodness. All right, here we go. We're back into this. That scared me too. It was like, listen to me or what? It's crazy. All right, here we go. We're back at it. The priest will examine the affect area of the skin. The hair in the affected area has turned white, and the problem appears to be more than the skin deep. It is a serious skin disease, and the priest will examine it. It must pronounce the person's ceremony unclean. But if the affect area of the skin is only a white discoloration and does not appear to be more than skin deep, and if the hair on the spot has not turned white, the priest will quarantine the person for 7 days. On the seventh day, the priest will make another examination. If he finds the affect area has not changed and the problem has not spread on the skin, the priest will quarantine the person for 7 more days. On the seventh day, the priest will make another examination. If he finds the affected area has faded and has not spread, the priest will pronounce the person's ceremony clean. It was only a rash. The person's clothing must be washed, and the person will be ceremony clean. But if the rash continues to spread after the person has been examined by the priest and has been pronounced clean, the affected person must return to be examined again. If the priest finds that the rash has spread, he must pronounce the person's ceremony unclean, for it is indeed a skin disease. Come on, Jesus, let's go. Anyone who develops a serious skin disease must go to the priest for examination. If the priest finds a white swelling on the skin and some hair on the spot has turned white and there is an open sore in the affected area, it is a chronic skin disease and the priest must pronounce the person's ceremony unclean. In such cases, a person needs not be quarantined, for it is obvious that the skin is defiled by the disease. Now, suppose a disease has spread all over the person's skin, covering the body from the head to the foot. When the priest examines the infected person and finds that the disease covers the entire body, he will pronounce the person's ceremony clean. Since the skin has turned completely white, the person is clean. But if any person's sores appear in the affected person, will be pronounced ceremony unclean. The priest must make the pronouncement as soon as he sees an open sore, since open sores indicate the person of the presence of the skin disease. However, if the open sores heal and turn white like the rest of the skin, the person must return to the priest for another examination. If the affected areas have indeed turned white, the priest will then pronounce the person's ceremony clean by declaring, "You are clean." If anyone has a boil on the skin that has started to heal, but a white swelling or a reddish white spot develops in its place, that person must go to the priest to be examined. If the priest examines it and finds it to be more than skin deep, and if the hair in the affected area has turned white, the priest must pronounce the person's ceremony unclean. The boil has become a serious skin disease, but if the priest finds no white hair on the affected area and the problem appears to be no more than skin deep and has faded, the priest must quarantine that person for 7 days. If during that time the affected area spreads on the skin, the priest must pronounce the person's ceremony unclean. Unclean because it is a serious disease, but if the area grows no longer and does not spread, it is merely the scar from the boil, and the priest will pronounce the person's ceremony clean. If anyone has suffered a burn on the skin and the burn area changes color, becoming either reddish white or skinny white, the priest must examine it. If he finds that the hair in the affected area has turned white and the problem appears to be more than skin deep, a skin disease has broken out in the burn, the priest must then pronounce the person's ceremony unclean, for it is clearly a serious skin disease. But if the priest finds no white hair on the affected area, and the problem appears to be no more than the skin deep and has faded, the priest must quarantine the infected person for 7 days. On the 7th day, the priest must examine the person again. If the affected area has spread on the skin, the priest must pronounce that person's ceremony unclean, for it is clearly a serious skin disease. But if the affected area has not changed or spread on the skin, and has faded, it is simply as swelling from the burn. The priest will then pronounce the person ceremonially clean, for it is only the scar from the burn. If anyone, either a man or woman, has a sore on the head or chin, the priest must examine it. If he finds it more than skin deep and has fine yellow hair on it, the priest must pronounce the person ceremonially unclean. It is a scabby sore of the head or chin. If the priest examines the scabby sore and finds that it is only skin deep, but there is no black hair on it, he must quarantine the person for 7 days. On the 7th day, the priest must examine the sore again. If he finds that the scabby sore has not spread and there is no yellow hair on it, and it appears to be only skin deep, the person must shave off all hair except the hair on the affected area. Then the priest must quarantine the person for another 7 days. On the 7th day, he will examine the sore again. If it has not spread and appears to be no more than skin deep, the priest will pronounce the person ceremonially clean. The person's clothing must be washed, and the person will be ceremonially clean. But if the scabby sore begins to spread after the person is pronounced clean, the priest must do another examination. If he finds that the sore has spread, the priest does not need to look for yellow hair. The affected person is ceremonially clean. But if the color of the scabby sore does not change and the black hair has grown on it, it has healed. The priest will then pronounce the person ceremonially clean. If anyone, either a man or woman, has skinny white patches on the skin, the priest must examine the affected area. If he finds that skinny patches are only pale white, this is a harmless skin rash, and the person is ceremonially clean. If a man loses his hair and his head becomes bald, like me, he is still ceremonially clean. And if he loses hair on his head or forehead, like me, he is still clean. I'm still clean. There you go. However, if a reddish white sore appears on the bald area, oh no, on the top of his head or on his forehead, this is a skin disease. The priest must examine him, and if he finds swelling around the reddish white sore anywhere on the man's head and it looks like a skin disease, the man is indeed affected with skin diseases and is unclean. And the priest must pronounce him ceremonially unclean because of the sore on his head. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. All right. So those who suffer from a serious skin disease must tear their clothing and leave their hair uncombed. They must cover their mouth and call out, unclean, unclean. As long as the serious disease lasts, they will be ceremonially unclean. They must live in the isolation in their place outside the camp. Treatment of the contaminated clothing. Oh my goodness. Now suppose mildew contaminates some woolen or linen clothing. Woolen or linen fabric, the hide of an animal, or anything made of leather. If the contaminated area in the clothing, the animal hide, the fabric, or the leather article has turned greenish or reddish, it is contaminated with the mildew and must be shown to the priest. After examining the affected spot, the priest will put the article in quarantine for 7 days. On the 7th day, the priest must inspect it again. If the contaminated area has spread, the clothing or fabric or leather is clearly contaminated by a serious mildew and is ceremonially unclean. The priest must burn the item, the clothing, the woolen or the linen fabric or the piece of leather, for it has been contaminated by a serious mildew. It must be completely destroyed by fire. Holy fire. Holy fire. But if the priest examines it and finds that the contaminated area has not spread in the clothing, in the fabric, or the leather, the priest will order the object to be washed and then quarantined for 7 more days. Then the priest must examine the object again. If he finds that contaminated area has not changed color after being washed, even if it did not spread, the object is defiled. It must be completely burned up, whether the contaminated spots on the other side of the or inside or outside. But if the priest examines it and finds that the contaminated area has faded after being washed, he must cut the spot from the clothing, the fabric, or leather. If the spot later reappears on the clothing, the fabric, or the leather article, the mildew is clearly spreading and contaminated object must be burnt up. But if the spot disappears from the clothing, the fabric, or the leather article after it has been washed, it must be washed again, then it will be ceremony clean. These are the instructions for the dealing with the mildew and or that contaminates woolen or linen clothing or fabric or anything made of leather. This is how the priest will determine whether these items are ceremony clean or unclean. This is Leviticus chapter 14, cleansing from skin disease. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Jesus is the best. Jesus Christ is the best. Come on, Jesus. We got to give all the grace and glory to our Father, Jesus Christ. Come on, literally, Jesus. Jesus, Jesus. Holy, 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 holy. Holy, holy. Come on, Jesus. Chapter 14, Leviticus chapter 14. Let's go. And the Lord said to Moses, the following instructions are for these seeking ceremonial purification from a skin disease. Those who have been healed must be brought to the priest, who will examine them at a place outside the camp. If the priest finds that someone has been healed of a serious skin disease, he will perform a purification ceremony using 2 live birds that are ceremonially clean, a stick of cedar, some scarlet yarn, and a hyssop branch. The priest will order that one bird he slaughter over a clay pot filled with fresh water. He will take the live bird, the cedar stick, and the scarlet yarn and the hyssop branch, and dip them into the blood of the bird that was slaughtered over the fresh water. The priest will then sprinkle the blood of the dead bird 7 times on the person being purified of the skin disease. When the priest has purified the person, he will release the live bird in the open field to fly away. The persons being purified must then wash their clothes, shave off all their hair, and bathe themselves in water. Then they will be ceremony clean and may return to the camp. However, they must remain outside their tents for 7 days. On the 7th day, they must again shave all the hair from their heads, including the hair of the beard and the eyebrows. They must also wash their clothes and bathe themselves in water. Then they will be ceremony clean. On the 8th day, each person being purified must bring 2 male lambs and 1-year-old female lamb with the defects, along with a grain offering of 6 quarts of choice flour moistened with olive oil and a cup of olive oil. Then the officiating priest will present that person for purification along with the offerings before the Lord. The entrance of the tabernacle, the priest will then take one of the male lambs and the olive oil and present them as a guilt offering, lifting them up as a special offering before the Lord. He will then slaughter the male lamb in the sacred area where the sin offerings and burnt offerings are slaughtered. As with the sin offering, the guilt offering belongs to the priest. It is a most holy offering. The priest will then take some of the blood of the guilt offering and apply it to the lobe of the right ear, of the thumb of the right hand, and the big toe of the right foot of the person being purified. Come on, Jesus. I'm reading the Holy Bible. Come on, let's go. Come on, Jesus, the Holy Bible. Yes. All right. Then the priest will pour some of the olive oil into the palm of his own left hand. He will dip his right finger into the oil and his palm and sprinkle some of it with his fingers 7 times before the Lord. The priest will then apply some of the oil in his palm and palm over the blood from the guilt offering that is on the lobe of the right ear, the thumb of the right hand, and the big toe of the right foot of the person being purified. The priest will apply the oil remaining in his hands to the head of the person being purified. Through this process, the priest will purify the person before the Lord. Come on, Jesus. Let's go. Then the priest must present this offering. There's a sin offering to purify the person who was cured of the skin disease. After that, the priest will slaughter the burnt offering and the offering it on the altar along with the grain offering. Through this process, the priest will purify the person who was healed, and the person will be ceremonially clean. But anyone who is too poor and cannot offer or afford these offerings, maybe bring one male lamb for a guilt offering to be lifted up as a special offering for purification. This person must also bring 2 quarts of choice flour moistened with olive oil for the grain offering and a cup of olive oil. The offering must also include 2 turtle doves or 2 young pigeons, whichever the person can afford. One of the pair must be used for the sin offering and the offering for a burnt offering. On the 8th day of the purification ceremony, the person being purified must bring the offerings to the priest in the Lord's presence at the entrance of the tabernacle. The priest will take the lamb for the guilt offering along with the olive oil and lift them up as a special offering to the Lord. Then the priest will slaughter the lamb for the guilt offering. He will take some of its blood and apply it to the lobe of the right ear, the thumb of the right hand, and the big toe of the right foot of the person being purified. This priest will also pour some of the olive oil into the palm of his own left hand. He will dip his right finger into the oil in his palm and sprinkle some of it 7 times before the Lord. The priest will then apply some of the oil in his palm over the blood from the guilt offering that is on the lobe of the right ear, the thumb of the right hand, and the big toe of the right foot of the person being purified. The priest will apply the oil remaining in his hand to the head of the person being purified. Through the process, the priest will purify the person before the Lord. Come on, Jesus. Come on, Jesus. Leviticus, we're getting through Leviticus. Come on, Leviticus, let's go, Leviticus. Then the priest will offer the 2 turtle doves over the 2 young pigeons, whichever the person can afford. One of them is for a sin offering and the other for a burnt offering to be presented along with the grain offering. Through this process, the priest will purify the person before the Lord. These are the instructions for purification for those who have recovered from a serious skin disease, but who cannot afford to bring the offerings normally required for the ceremony of purification. Come on, Jesus. Treatment of containment or treatment of contaminated houses. Then the Lord said to Moses and Aaron, when are you arrive in Canaan, the land I'm giving you as your own possession, I may contaminate some of the houses in your land with mildew. The owner of such of a house must then go to the priest and say, it appears then my house has some kind of mildew. Before the priest goes in to inspect the house, he must have the house emptied so nothing inside will be pronounced ceremonially unclean. Then the priest will go in and examine the mildew on the walls. If he finds greenish or reddish streaks and the contamination appears to go deeper than the wall's surface, the priest will step outside the door and put the house in quarantine for 7 days. On the 7th day, the priest must return for another inspection if he finds that the mildew on the walls of the house has spread. The priest must order that the stones from those areas be removed. The contaminated material will then be taken outside an area designated as a ceremonially unclean. Next, the inside walls of the entire house must be scraped thoroughly. The scrapings dumped in the unclean place outside the town. Other stones will be brought into the replace the ones that were removed, and the walls will be re-splattered. But if the mildew reappears after all the stones have been replaced and the house has been scraped and replastered, the priest must return and inspect the house again. If he finds that the mildew has spread, the walls are clearly contaminated with a serious mildew, and the house is defiled, it must be torn down, and all its stones, timbers, and plasters must be carried out of town to the place designated as ceremonially unclean. Those who enter the house during the period of the quarantine will be ceremonially unclean until evening, and all who sleep or eat in the house must wash their clothing. But if the priest returns for his inspections and finds that the mildew has not reappeared in the house after the refreshed plastering, he will pronounce it clean because the mildew is clearly gone. To purify the house, the priest must take 2 birds, a stick of the cedar, some scarlet yarn, and a hyssop branch. He will slaughter one of the birds over a clay pot filled with fresh water. He will take the cedar stick, hyssop branch, and scarlet yarn, and then the live bird, and dip them into the blood of the slaughtered bird and into the fresh water. Then he will sprinkle the house 7 times. When the priest has purified the house in exactly this way, he will release the live bird in the open fields outside the town. Through this process, the priest will purify the house and it will be ceremonially clean. These are the instructions for dealing with serious skin diseases, including scabby sores and mildew, whether on clothing or in the house. And as a swelling on the skin, a rash, or discolored skin, this procedure will determine whether a person's or object is ceremonially clean or unclean. These are the instructions regarding skin disease and mildew. Come on, Jesus. What's up? This is chapter 15, Leviticus chapter 15, bodily discharges. Oh my gosh. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. The Lord said to Moses and Aaron, give the following instructions to the people of Israel. Any man who has bodily discharges is ceremonially unclean. This defilement is caused by his discharges, whether the discharge continues or stops. In either case, the man is unclean, and any bed on which the man with the discharge lies and anything on which he sits will be ceremonially unclean. So if you touch the man's bed, you must wash your clothes and bathe yourself in water, and you will remain unclean until evening. If you sit where the man with the discharge has sat, you must wash your clothes and bathe yourself in water, and you will remain unclean until evening. If you touch the man with the discharge, you must wash your clothes and bathe yourself in water, and you will remain unclean until evening. If the man spits on you, you must wash your clothes and bathe yourself in water, and you will remain unclean until evening. Any saddle blanket on which the man rides will be ceremonially unclean. If you touch anything that was under the man, you will be unclean until evening. You must wash your clothes and bathe yourself in water, and you will remain unclean until evening. If the man touches you without first rinsing his hands, you must wash your clothes and bathe yourself in water, and you will remain unclean until evening. Any clay pot on the man touches must be broken. Any wooden utensils he touches must be rinsed with water. When the man with the discharge is healed, he must count off 7 days for the period of purification. Then he must wash his clothes and bathe himself in fresh water, and he will be ceremonially clean. Come on, Jesus. Yes. On the 8th day, he must get 2 turtle doves or 2 young pigeons and come before the Lord at the entrance of the tabernacle and give his offerings to the priest. The priest will offer 1 bird for a sin offering and the other for a burnt offering. Through his process, the priest will purify the man before the Lord for the discharge. Whenever a man has an enemy, emission of semen, he must bathe his entire body in water, and he will remain ceremonially unclean until the next evening. Any clothing or leather with semen on it must be washed in water and will remain unclean until evening. After a man and a woman has sexual intercourse, they must each bathe in water, and they remain unclean until the next evening. Whenever a woman has her menstrual period, she will be ceremonially unclean for 7 days. Anyone who touches her during that time will be unclean until evening. Anything on which the woman lies or sits during the time of her period will be unclean. If any of you touch her bed, you must wash your clothes and bathe yourself in water, and you will remain unclean at evening until evening. If any you touch any object she has sat on, you must wash her clothes and bathe yourself in water, and you will remain unclean until evening. This includes your bed or any other object she has sat on. You will be unclean until evening if you touch it. If a man has sexual intercourse with her and her blood touches him, her menstrual impurity will be transmitted to him. He will remain unclean for 7 days. and any bed on which he lies will be unclean. If a woman has a flow of blood for many days that is related to her menstrual period, or if the blood continues beyond the normal period, she is ceremonially unclean. As during her menstrual period, the woman will be unclean as long as the discharge continues. Any bed she lies on and any object she sits on during that time will be unclean. Just as during her normal menstrual period, if any of you touch these things, you will be ceremonially unclean. You must wash your clothes and bathe yourself in water, and you will remain unclean until evening. Come on, Jesus. Come on, Jesus. All right, we're getting to almost Leviticus chapter 16. When the woman bleeding stops, she must count off 7 days. She must count off 7 days, then she will be ceremonially clean. On the 8th day, she must bring 2 turtle doves or 2 young pigeons and present them to the priest. At the entrance of the tabernacle, the priest will offer one for a sin offering and the other for a burnt offering. Through this process, the priest will purify her before the Lord for ceremony impurity caused by her bleeding. This is how you will guard the people of Israel from ceremonially uncleanness. Otherwise, they would die, for their impurity would defile my tabernacle that stands among them. These are the instructions for dealing with anyone who has a body discharge, a man who is unclean because of an emission of semen, or a woman during her menstrual period. It applies to any man or woman who has bodily discharge and to a man who has sexual intercourse with a woman who is ceremonially unclean. All right, chapter 16, Leviticus. Chapter 16, Leviticus. Chapter 16, let's go. Let's go. Are you ready? The day of atonement. Come on, atonement. All right. The Lord spoke to Moses after the death of Aaron's 2 sons, and who died after they entered the Lord's presence and burned the wrong kind of fire before him. The Lord said to Moses, warn your brothers, Aaron not to enter the most high holy place behind the inner curtain wherever he chooses. If he does, he will die. For the arks cover the place of atonement is there, and I myself am present in the cloud of above the atonement cover. When Aaron enters the sanctuary area, he must follow these instructions fully. He must bring a young bull for a sin offering and a ram for a burnt offering. He must put on his linen tunic and the linen undergarments worn next to his body. He must tie the linen sash around his waist and put the linen turban on his head. These are sacred garments, so he must bathe himself in water before he puts them on. Aaron must take from the community of Israel 2 male goats for a sin offering and ram for a burnt offering. Aaron will present his own bull as a sin offering to purify himself and his family, making them right with the Lord. Then he must take 2 male goats and present them to the Lord at the entrance of the tabernacle. He is to cast sacred lots to determine which goat will be reserved as an offering to the Lord and which will carry the sins of the people to the wilderness of Azel. Azel, I don't know. Aaron will then present as a sin offering the goat chosen by Lot for the Lord. The other goat, the scapegoat chosen by Lot to be sent away, will be kept alive standing before the Lord. When it is sent away to Azel in the wilderness, the people will be purified and made right with the Lord. Aaron will present his own bull as a sin offering to purify himself and his family, making them right with the Lord. After he has slaughtered the bull as a sin offering, he will fill an incense burner with burning coals from the altar, then stands before the Lord. Then he will take 2 handfuls of fragrant powder, incense, and will carry the burner and incense behind the inner curtain. There in the Lord represents, he will put incense on the burning coals so that a cloud of incense will rise over the arks, cover the palace. Ooh, ah, ooh, ah, ooh, ah. Come on, Jesus. Come on. I'm reading Leviticus. Leviticus chapter 16, 13. All right. And of anointment, the rest of the ark of the covenant, if he follows these instructions, he will not die. Then he must take some of the blood of the bowl, dip his finger in it, and sprinkle it on the east side of the atonement cover. He must sprinkle blood 7 times with his finger in front of the atonement cover. Then Aaron must slaughter the first goat as a sin offering for the people and carry its blood behind the inner curtain. There he will sprinkle the goat's blood over the atonement cover and in front of it, just as he did with the bull's blood. Through this process, he will purify the most holy place, and he will do the same for the entire tabernacle because of the defiling sin and rebellion of the Israelites. No one else is allowed inside the tabernacle when Aaron enters it for the purification ceremony in the most holy place. No one may enter until he comes out again after purifying himself, his family, and all his congregation of Israel, making them right with the Lord. Come on, Jesus. Let's go, Jesus. Yes. Then Aaron will come out to purify the altar and the stands before the Lord. He will do this by taking some of the blood from the bull and the goat and putting it on each of the horns of the altar. Then he must sprinkle the blood with his fingers 7 times over the altar. In this way, he will cleanse it from Israel's defilement and making it holy. When Aaron has finished purifying the most holy place, the tabernacle and the altar, he must present the live goat. He will lay both of his hands on the goat's head and confess over it all the wickedness, rebellion, and the sins of the people of Israel. In this way, he will transfer the people's sins to the head of the goat. Then a man specifically chosen for the task will drive the goat into the wilderness. As a goat goes into the wilderness, it will carry all the people's sins upon itself into the desolate land. When Aaron goes back into the tabernacle, he must take off the linen garments he was wearing when he entered the most holy place, and he must leave the garments there. Then he must bathe himself with water. Bathe himself with water. Let's see where I lost my place. Oh my goodness. Bathe himself with water in a sacred place, put on his regular garments, and go out to the sacrifice of burnt offering for himself and burnt offering for the people. Through this process, he will purify himself and the people, making them right with the Lord. He must then burn all the fat of the sin offering on the altar. The man chosen to drive the scapegoat into the wilderness of the Azel must wash his clothes and bathe himself in water. Then he may return to the camp. The bull and the goat presented as a sin offering, whose blood Aaron takes into the most holy place for the purification ceremony, will be carried outside the camp. The animal's hides, internal organs, and dung are all to be burned. The man who burns them must wash his clothes and bathe himself in water before returning to the camp. Come on, Jesus. Come on, Jesus. Let's go, Jesus. It's 12 o'clock in California. Ooh, ooh. It's 12 o'clock in California. We're in California right now. Hello, hello, hello. Yes, and we're reading Leviticus. Come on, come on. Let's go, Jesus. Aha. California love. California love. Well, welcome to the Holy Bible. We're going up to heaven almighty. We're going to break off every chain. That's right. The demons are going to flee away. Oh, yeah. The Holy Bible. Leviticus. We're reading chapter 17. I can't do it. On the 10th day of the appointed month in the early autumn, you must deny yourself. Neither native-born Israelites nor foreigners living among you may do any kind of work. any kind of work. This is a permanent law for you. On that day, offerings of purification will be made for you, and you will be purified in the Lord's presence. From all your sins, it will be a Sabbath day of complete rest for you, and you must deny yourselves. This is a permanent law for you in the future generations. The purification ceremony will be performed by the priest who has been anointed and ordained and to serve as high priest in the place of his ancestors. Aaron, he will put on the holy linen garments and purify the most holy place, the tabernacle, the altar, the priest, and the entire congregation. This is a permanent law for you to purify the people of Israel from their sins, making them right with the Lord once each year. Moses followed all these and the instructions exactly as the Lord has commanded him. Come on, Jesus. Come on, Jesus. Let's go, Jesus. Prohibitions against eating blood. Oh my goodness. Chapter 17, Leviticus chapter 17. Let's go. Come on, Jesus. Then the Lord said to Moses, give the following instructions to Aaron and his sons and all the people of Israel. This is what the Lord has commanded. If any native Israelite sacrifices a bull or a lamb or a goat anywhere inside or outside the camp, inside of bringing it to the entrance of the tabernacle to present it as an offering to the Lord, that person will be as guilty as a murderer. Such a person has shed blood and will be cut off from the community. The purpose of this rule is to stop the Israelites from sacrificing animals in the open fields. It will ensure that they bring their sacrifices to the priest at the entrance of the tabernacle so he can present them to the Lord as peace offerings. Then the priest will be able to splatter the blood against the Lord's altar at the entrance of the tabernacle, and he will burn that fat as a pleasing aroma to the Lord. The people must no longer be unfaithful to the Lord by offering sacrifices to the goat idols. This is a permanent law for them to be observed from generation to generation. Give them this command, and as well, if any native Israelite or foreigner living among you offers a burnt offering or sacrifice but does not bring it to the entrance of the tabernacle to offer it to the Lord. All right, here we go. Lord, that person will be cut off from the community. And if any native Israelite or foreigner living among you eats or drinks blood in any form, I will turn against the person and cut him off from the community of your people. For the life of the body is in its blood. I have given you the blood on the altar to purify you, making you right with the Lord. It is the blood giving in exchange for a life that makes purification possible. That is why I have said to the people of Israel, you must never eat or drink blood, neither you nor the foreigners living among you. You must never eat or drink blood. Don't ever do it. Yes, don't do it. I gotta highlight that. It says it did. Don't drink any blood. That's demonic. Did you hear that? Don't drink any blood. Don't drink no blood or eat any blood. It says it in Leviticus. Don't do it. Don't you dare do it. Don't you dare do it. Come on, somebody. Let's go. I'm going to highlight that with my highlighter. This is the highlighter. Let's go. You must never have sexual relations with a close relative, for I am the Lord. Don't ever. You must never eat or drink blood, neither nor the foreigners living among you. Oh my goodness. Don't do it. Don't you dare drink blood or eat blood. You hear me? Don't you do it. Don't you do it. No, don't you dare do it. It's demonic. That's demonic. Don't do it. And if any native Israelites or foreigner living among you goes hunting and kills an animal or bird that is approved for eating, you must drain its blood and cover it with earth. The life of every creature is in its blood. That is why I have said to the people of Israel, you must never eat or drink blood, for the life of any creature is in its blood. So whoever consumes blood will be cut off from the community. Oh my goodness. Don't do it. Don't do it. And if any native-born Israelites or foreigners eat the meat of an animal that died naturally or was torn up by wild animals, then must wash their clothes and bathe themselves in water. They will remain ceremonially unclean until evening, but then they will be clean. But if they do not wash their clothes and bathe themselves, they will be punished for their sins. Goodness gracious. Chapter 18, Leviticus chapter 18, forbidden sexual practices. Oh my goodness. Then the Lord said to Moses, give the following instructions to the people of Israel. I am the Lord your God, so do not act like the people in Egypt, where you used to live, or like the people of Canaan, where I am taking you. You must not imitate their way of life. You must obey all regulations and be careful to obey my decrees. For I am the Lord your God. If you obey my decrees and my regulations, you will find life through them. I am the Lord. You must never have sexual relations with a close relative, for I am the Lord. Do not violate your father by having sexual relations with your mother. She is your mother. You must not have sexual relationships with her. Do not have sexual relationships with any of your father's wives, for this would violate your father. Do not have sexual relations with your sisters or half sisters, whether she is your father's daughters or your mother's daughters, whether she was born into your household or someone else's. Do not have sexual relationships with your granddaughter, whether she is your son's daughter or your daughter's daughter, for this would violate yourself. Do not have sexual relations with your stepsisters, the daughter of any other father's wives, for she is your sister. Do not have sexual relations with your father's sisters, for she is your father's close relative. Do not have sexual relationships with your mother's sisters, for she is your mother's close relative. Do not violate your uncle, your father's brothers, by having sexual relations with his wife, for she is your aunt. Do not have sexual relations with your daughter-in-law, she is your son's wife, so you must not have sexual relations with her. Do not have sexual relations with your brother's wife, for this would violate your brother. Do not have sexual relationships with both a woman and her daughter. And do not take her granddaughter, whether her son's daughters or her daughter's daughters, and have sexual relationships with her. They are close relatives, and this would be a wicked act. While your wife is living, do not marry her sister and have sexual relationships with her, for they would be rivals. Oh my goodness, crazy. Do not have sexual relationships with a woman during her period or mental impurity. Oh my goodness. Whoa. Well, do not have sexual relations with a woman during her period or mental impurities. Ooh, that's a big sin. Do not defile yourself by having sexual intercourse with your neighbor's wife. Do not permit any of your children or to be offered as a sacrifice to Moloch, for you must not bring shame on them of your God. I am the Lord. Do not practice homosexuality, having sex with another man as a woman. It is a detestable sin. A man must not defile himself by having sex with an animal. Ew, it's crazy. Dude, Leviticus is crazy. It's going over like all of this crazy stuff. Maybe it says, do not have sexual relationship with a woman during her period of mental impurities.
Yes, I knew that.
So if people are saying about Leviticus with tattoos, what about them having sexual intercourse with their person on their period? All right. Right? Do not defile yourself in any of these ways, for the people I am driving out before you defile themselves in all these ways, because the entire land has become defiled. I am punishing the people who live there. I will cause the land to vomit them out. You must obey all my decrees and regulations. You must not commit any of these detestable sins. This applies both to native-born Israelites and to the foreigners living among you. All these detestable activities are practices by the people of the land where I am taking you. And this is how the land has become defiled. So do not defile the land and give it a reason to vomit you out, as it will vomit out the people who live there now. Whoever commits any of these detestable sins will be cut off from the community of Israel. So obey my instructions and do not defile yourselves by committing any of these just detestable practices that were committed by the people who lived in the land before you. I am the Lord your God. Goodness gracious. It's intense.
You're funny, baby.
Chapter 19, Leviticus. Dude, there's so much. It's all the way to chapter, there's a lot. 29. 29, I think. What are you doing, baby? I'm getting hungry again. I'm going to eat pretty soon. Yeah, there's, 27 chapters. 27 chapters. Yeah, do not mark your skin, but what about, it says you can have sex with your woman on her period. Have you done that? What about thou should not judge thy neighbor? Are you doing that right now? You're judging thy neighbor. Really? Did you forget about that covenant? Thou should not judge thy neighbor. What about cast the first stone if you ever sinned? Cast the first stone if you ever sinned. Oh, wow. Come on. Come on. Come on. We're all, come on. All right. We're not all perfect here. Holiness in the personal conduct. The Lord is also, this is chapter 19, Leviticus chapter 19. NLT version. Okay, let's go. The Lord also said to Moses, give the following instructions to the entire community of Israel. You must be holy because I, Lord your God, am holy. Come on, Jesus. Come on, Jesus. Only Jesus was perfect. Each of you must show great respect for your mother and father, and you must always observe my Sabbath days of rest. I am the Lord your God. Do not put your trust in idols or make metal images of gods. Do not put your trust in idols or make metal images of gods for yourself. Don't do that. Have you ever worshipped anything besides God? Okay. All right. That's a big one right there, right? American Idol. Oh my gosh. Get out of here. Yes, I was on American Idol, but that doesn't mean I worship the idol. And I wasn't saved back then, so yeah. I am the Lord your God. When you sacrifice a peace offering to the Lord, offer it properly. So you will be accepted by the God. The sacrifice must be eaten on the same day you offer it, or on the next day. Whenever is left or over until the third day, must be completely burned up. If any of the sacrifices is eaten on the third day, it will be contaminated and it will not accept it. Anyone who eats it on the third day will be punished for defiling what is holy to the Lord and will be cut off from the community. Come on, Jesus. Come on, Jesus. When you harvest the crops of your land, do not harvest the grain along the edges of your fields, and do not pick up what the harvest dropped. It is the same with your grape crop. Do not strip every last branch or the bunch of grapes from the vines, and do not pick up the grapes that fall into the ground. Leave them for the poor and the foreigners living among you. I am the Lord your God. Do not steal. Do not deceive or cheat one another. Do not bring shame on the name of your God by using it or just swear falsely. I am the Lord. Do not defraud or rob your neighbor. What about that? I'm going to highlight all that. Everybody's like, what about tattooing your skin? I'm like, what about do not steal? Do not deceive or cheat one another. Do not bring or shame on the name of your God by using it to swear falsely. I am the Lord your God. Do not defraud or rob your neighbor. Do not make your hired workers wait until the next day to receive the pay. Do not insult or defeat or cause the blind to stumble. You must not fear your God. I am the Lord. Do not twist justice in legal matters by favoring the poor or being partial to the rich and powerful. Always judge people fairly. Do not spread slanderous gossip among your people. What about that? Do you gossip? It says do not gossip and slander amongst people. Do you gossip? What about that? Oh, how many people do that? Do not stand idly by your own neighbor's life and threaten them. I am the Lord your God. Do not nurse hatred in your heart for any of your relatives. Confront people directly so you will not be held guilty for their sins. Do not seek refuge or bear a grudge against a fellow Israelite, but love your neighbor as yourself, as I am the Lord your God. What about that? Love thy neighbor, right? But love your neighbor as yourself. Are you loving your neighbor as much as yourself? Because if you did love your neighbor, you wouldn't be condemning them or poking the finger at them, right? Oh, look at you're a sinner, right? That's not love. You must obey all my decrees. Do not mate two different kinds of animals. Do not plant your field with two different kinds of seeds. Do not wear clothing woven from two different kinds of thread. What about that? If a man has sex with a slave girl whose freedom has never been purchased, but who is committed to become another man's wife, he must pay full compensation to her master. But since she is not a free woman, neither the man nor the woman will be put to death. The man, however, must bring a ram as a guilt offering and present it to the Lord. At the entrance of the tabernacle, the priest will then purify him before the Lord with the ram of the guilt offering, and the man's sins will be forgiven. Come on, Jesus. When you enter the land and the plant fruit trees, leave the fruit unharvested for the first 3 years and consider it forbidden. Do not eat it in the 4th year. Then an entire crop must be consecrated to the Lord as a celebration of praise. Finally, in the 5th year, you may eat the fruit. If you follow this pattern, your harvest will increase. I am the Lord your God. Do not eat meat that has not been drained of its blood. Do not practice fortune telling or witchcraft. Do not practice fortune telling or witchcraft. There we go. Do not trim of the hair on your temples or trim your beards. It says that. What the heck? Do not trim of your hair or your temples or trim your beards. Well, I shave my face, so I guess not. Do not cut your bodies for the dead, and do not mark your skin with tattoos. I am the Lord. So it says, yeah, don't cut your hair or trim your beards. How many people shave their face? You know what I mean? Do not defile your daughter by making her a prostitute, or the land will be filled with prostitution and wickedness. Keep my Sabbath days of rest and show reverence toward my sanctuary. I am the Lord. Do not defile yourself by turning the mediums or those who consult the spirits of the dead. I am the Lord your God. Stand up in the presence of the elderly, and show respect for the aged. Fear your God. I am the Lord. Fear your God. I am the Lord. Do not take advantage of foreigners who live among you and your land. Treat them like native-born Israelites and love them as you love yourself. Remember that you were once foreigners living in the land of Egypt. I am the Lord your God. You can't make me. You can't make me. No. Okay, I've got this. Okay, there we go. Come on. Yeah, you don't like it because you don't like hearing the truth. There we go. All right, so chapter 20, Leviticus chapter 20. Let's go. Come on. Yeah, tattoos are sinful, but it also says do not practice fortune telling or witchcraft. Do not trim off the hair on your temples or trim your beards. Are you trimming your beards or are you trimming your hair? It says don't trim your hair. And what about thou shalt not judge thy neighbor? Thou shalt love yourself. Love your neighbor as you love yourself. So what about that, huh? What about that? What about that? Oh, what about that? Yeah, are you following all the laws of Leviticus? Are you? What about, it says you can't have sex with a woman on their period. Have you ever done that? Have you ever done that? Oh. It says also don't ever steal. Yeah? Have you stolen? There's a lot of sins that we do, right? Lord, okay, chapter 20, Leviticus chapter 20, and the NLT version. Come on. Everybody's mad because we all know, because the enemy doesn't like to listen to the Holy Bible, the truth, the way, and the life. People are getting convicted. People don't like to be convicted. You know, yes. The Lord said to Moses, give the people of Israel these instructions which apply both to the native Israelites and to the foreigners living in Israel. If any of them offer their children as a sacrifice to Molech, they must be put to death. The people of the community must stone them to death. I myself will turn against them and cut them off from the community because they have defiled my sanctuary and brought shame on my holy name by offering their children to Molech. And if the people of the community ignore those who offer their children to Molech and refuse to execute them, I myself will turn against them and their families and will cut them off from the community. This will happen to all who commit spiritual prostitution by worshiping Molech. I will also turn against those who commit spiritual prostitution by putting their trust in mediums or in those who consult the spirits of the dead. I will cut them off from the community, so set yourself apart to be holy, for I am the Lord your God. Keep all my decrees by putting them into practice, for I am the Lord who makes you holy. Anyone who dishonors father or mother must be put to death. Such a person is guilty of a capital offense. Oh my goodness. I'm a man commits adultery with his neighbor's wife. Both the man and the woman who have committed adultery must be put to death. If a man violates his father by having sex with one of his father's wives, both the men and the women must be put to death, for they are guilty of capital offense. If a man has sex with his daughter-in-law, both must be put to death. They have committed a perverse act and are guilty of a capital offense. If a man practices homosexuality, having sex with another man as with a woman, both men have committed a detestable act. They must both be put to death, for they are guilty of capital offense. If a man marries both a woman and her mother, he has committed a wicked act. Then a man, both women must be burned to death to wipe out such wickedness from among you. Oh my goodness, that's crazy. If a man has sex with an animal, he must be put to death, and an animal must be killed. That's crazy. That's just crazy. If a man presents himself to a male animal to have intercourse with it, she and the animal must be put to death. You must kill both, for they are guilty of a capital offense. If a man marries his sister, the daughter of either his father or his mother, and they have sexual relations, it is a shameful disgrace. They must be publicly cut off from the community. Since the man has violated his sister, he will be punished for his sin. If a man has sexual relations with a woman during her menstrual period, both of them must be cut off the community, for together they have exposed the source of her blood flow. Do not have sexual relationships with your aunt, whether your mother's sister or your father's sister. This will dishonor a close relative. Both parties are guilty and will be punished for their sins. If a man has sex with his uncle's wife, he has violated his uncle. Both the man and women will be punished for their sins and will die the childless. If a man marries his brother's wife, it is an act of impurity. He has violated his brother, and a guilty couple will remain childless. You must keep all decrees and regulations by putting them into practice. Otherwise, the land to which I am bringing you as your new home, will vomit you out. Do not live according to the customs of the people I am driving out before you. It is because they do these shameful things that I detest them, but I promise you, you will possess their land, because I will give it to you as your possession. A land flowing with milk and honey. I am the Lord your God, who has sent you apart from all other people. You must therefore make a distinction between ceremonially clean and unclean animals, and between clean and unclean birds. You must not defile yourself by eating any unclean animals or bird or creature that scurries along the ground. I have identified them as being unclean for you. You must be holy, because I, Lord, am holy. I set you apart from all other people to be my very own. I am the Lord, I am holy. I have sent apart from all the people to be very own. Come on, Jesus, let's go. Come on, Jesus. This looks ungodly. What do you mean? I'm reading the Holy Bible. So the Holy Bible is godly. What am I speaking? It's godly. So therefore, it is godly because the word is the truth and is the way in the life. And the word will set you free, right? So it's godly. Yes. We're reading Leviticus chapter 21. Come on, Jesus. Come on, Jesus. What are you even talking about? It's not godly. I'm speaking godly. What do you mean? But whatever do you mean? It is godly. Yes. Well, I don't like to read thou, thee, though. I don't understand thou, thee, though. So I'm reading what I can understand. Yeah. If you like the King James Version, then you read it. But I don't understand thou, thee, though. It's a lot of thee, though, thee, though, thee, though. And if you don't like it, then you can read it by yourself. But I'm reading what I'm reading. Yes. Chapter 21, Leviticus, chapter 21, instructions for the priests. The Lord said to Moses, give the following instructions to the priests, the descendants of Aaron. A priest must not make himself ceremonially unclean by touching the dead body of a relative. The only exceptions are his closest relatives, his mother or father, son or daughter, brother, or his virgin sister who depends on him because she has no husband. But a priest must not defile himself and make himself unclean for someone who is related to him only by marriage. The priest must not shave their heads or trim their beards or cut their bodies. Dang, the priest must not shave their heads or trim their beards or cut their bodies. They must be set apart as holy to their God and must never bring shame on the name of God. Dude, I didn't know that. The priest must not shave their heads or trim their beards or cut their bodies. Dang, dude. So are the priests sinning? Because the priests shave their head, the priests cut their hair, and the priests shave their beards off. So people are mad about me getting tattoos, but it says, what do you mean? What? Come on. All right. They must be set apart as holy to their God and must never bring shame on the name of God. They must be holy, for they are the ones who present the special gifts to the Lord. Gifts of the food for their God. Priests may not marry a woman defiled by prostitution, and they may not marry a woman who is divorced from their husband, for the priests are set apart as holy to their God. You must treat them as holy because they offer up food to your God. You must consider them holy because I, the Lord, am holy, and I make you holy. If a priest's daughter defiles herself by becoming a prostitute, she also defies her father's holiness, and she must be burnt to death. The high priest has the highest rank of all the priests. The anointing oil has been poured on his head, and has been ordained to wear the priestly garments. He must never leave his hair uncombed or tear his clothing. He must not defile himself by going near a dead body. He may not make himself ceremony unclean, even for his father or mother. He must not defile the sanctuary of his God by leaving it to attain to a dead person. For he has been made holy by anointing oil of his God. I am the Lord. The high priest may marry only a virgin. He may not marry a widow, a woman who is divorced, or a woman who has defiled herself by prostitution. He must be a virgin from his own clan, so that he will not dishonor his descendants among his clan. For I am the Lord who makes him holy. Then the Lord says to Moses, give the following instructions to Aaron and all future generations. None of your descendants who has any defect will qualify to offer food to his God. No one who has defective qualities or qualifies, whether he is blind, lame, disfigured, deformed, or has been broken foot or arm, or his hucklebacked or defarted, or has defected eye, or skin sores, or scabs, or damaged testicles. No descendant of Aaron who has a defect may approach the altar to present special gifts to the Lord. Since he has defect, he may not approach the altar to offer food to his God. However, you may eat from the food offered to God, including the holy offerings and the most holy offerings. Yet, because of his physical defect, he may not enter the room behind the inner curtain or approach the altar for this world. This would defile my holy places. I am the Lord who makes them holy. Come on, Jesus. So Moses gave these instructions to Aaron and his sons and to all the Israelites. Chapter 22 Leviticus. Chapter 22 Leviticus. I'm reading the NLT version because it's a lot easier to understand. All right. The Lord said to Moses, tell Aaron and his sons to be very careful with the sacred gifts that the Israelites set apart from me, so they do not bring shame on my holy name. I am the Lord. Give them the following instructions in all future generations. If any of your descendants is ceremonially unclean when he approaches the sacred offerings that the people of Israel consecrates to the Lord, he must be cut off from the presence. I am the Lord. If any of Aaron's descendants has a skin disease or any kind of discharge that makes him ceremonially unclean, he may not eat from the sacred offerings until he has been pronounced clean. He also becomes unclean by touching a corpse or by having an emission of semen, or by touching a small animal that is unclean, or by touching someone who is ceremonially unclean. For any reason, the man who is defiled in any of these ways will remain unclean until evening. He may not eat from the sacred offerings until he has bathed himself in water. When the sun goes down, he will be ceremonially clean again and may eat from the sacred offerings. From this is his food. He may not eat an animal that has died naturally death or has been torn apart by the wild animals, for this would defile him. I am the Lord. Come on, Jesus. Let me see. Hold on 1 second. Hold on 1 second. It's way too small. The words are way too small. Dang. It's too small, the words, man. I'm telling you. Yeah, I checked out the other Bibles, and the words are like tiny little small words, dude. It's crazy. It's like, what is this? What is this? All right, here we go. We're keep on reading. Let's go. Let's go. Yes, Jesus. The priest must follow my instructions carefully, otherwise they will be punished for their sin and will die for violating my instructions. I am the Lord who makes them holy. No one outside a priest's family may eat the sacred offerings. Even guests and hired workers in a priest's home are not allowed to eat them. However, if the priest buys a slave for himself, the slave may eat from the sacred of offerings. And if his slaves have children, they also may share his food. If a priest's daughter marries someone outside the priestly family, she may no longer eat the sacred offerings. But if she becomes a widow or a divorce and has no children to support her, and she returns to live in her father's home as in her youth, she may eat her father's food again. Otherwise, no one outside a priest family may eat the sacred offerings. Any such person who eats the sacred offerings without realizing it must pay the priest for the amount eating plus an additional 20%. The priest must not let the Israelites defile the sacred offerings brought to the Lord. By allowing unauthorized people to eat them, this would bring guilt upon them and require them to pay compensation. I am the Lord who makes them holy. Worthy and unworthy offering. And the Lord said to Moses, give Aaron and his sons and all the Israelites these instructions, which imply both to native Israelites and to the foreigners living among you. If you present a gift as a burnt offering to the Lord, whether it is to fulfill a vow or it is a voluntary offering, you will be accepted only if your offering is a male animal with no defects. It may be a bull or ram or a male goat. Do not present an animal with defects, because the Lord will not accept it on your behalf. If you present a peace offering to the Lord from the herd or of the flock, whether it is fulfill or a vow or is a voluntary offering, you must offer a perfect animal. It may have no defect of any kind. You must not offer an animal that is blind, crippled, or injured, or that has a wart or skin sore or scabs. Such animals must never be offered on the altar as special gifts to the Lord. If a bull or lamb has a leg that is too long or too short, it may be offered as a voluntary offering, but it may not be offered to fulfill a vow. If any animal has damaged testicles or is castrated, you may not offer it to the Lord. You must never do this your own land, and you must not accept such an animal from foreigners and then offer it as a sacrifice to your God. Such animals will not be accepted on your behalf, for they are mutilated or defective. Come on, Jesus. Let's go, Jesus. Let's go, Jesus. And the Lord said to Moses, when a calf or lamb or goat is born, it must be left with its mother to 7 days from the 18th day on it. It will be acceptable as a special gift to the Lord, or a gift to the Lord. But you must not slaughter or a mother animal and her offspring on the same day, whether from the herd or the flock. When you bring a thanksgiving offering to the Lord, sacrifice it properly, so you will accept it. Eat the entire sacrificial animal on the day it is presented. Do not leave any of it until the next morning. I am the Lord. You must faithfully keep all the commands by putting them into practice, for I am the Lord. Do not bring shame on my holy name, for I will display my holiness among the people of Israel. I am the Lord who makes you holy. It was I who rescued you from the land of Egypt, that I might be your God. I am the Lord. Chapter 23, Leviticus chapter 23. Come on. Let's go. The appointed festivals. The Lord said to Moses, give the following instructions to the people of Israel. These are the Lord's appointed festivals, which you are to proclaim as official days for holy assembly. You have 6 days each week for your ordinary work, but the seventh day is a Sabbath day of a complete rest, an official day for the holy assembly. It is the Lord's Sabbath day, and it must be observed wherever you live. In addition to the Sabbath, these are the Lord's appointed festivals, the official days for the holy assembly that are to be celebrated at their proper times each year. Passover and the festival of unleavened bread. The Lord's Passover begins at sundown, and on the 14th day of the first month, on the next day, the 15th day of the month, you must begin celebrating the festival of unleavened bread. This festival to the Lord continues for 7 days, and during that time the bread you eat must be made without yeast. On the first day of the festival of all people must stop their ordinary work and observe an official day for a holy assembly. For 7 days you must present special gifts to the Lord. On the seventh day the people must again stop all the ordinary work to observe an official day for the holy assembly. Celebration of the first harvest. Then the Lord said to Moses, give the following instructions to the people of Israel. When you enter the land I am giving you, and you harvest its first crops, bring the priest's bundle of grain from the first cutting of your grain harvest. On that day after the Sabbath, the priest will lift it up before the Lord, so it may be accepted on your behalf. On that same day, you must sacrifice a 1-year-old male lamb with no defects as a burnt offering to the Lord. Yes. With it, you must present a grain offering consisting of 4 quarts of choice flour moistened with olive oil. It will be a special gift, a pleasing aroma to the Lord. You must also offer 1 quart of wine as a liquid offering. Do not eat any bread or roasted grain or fresh kernels on that day until you bring this offering to your God. This is a permanent law for you, and it must be observed from generation to generation wherever you live. Come on, Jesus. Come on, Jesus. The festival of harvest from the day after the Sabbath, the day you bring the bundle of grain to be lifted up as a special offering. Count to 7 full weeks. Keep counting until the day after the 7th Sabbath, 50 days later. Then present an offering of new grain to the Lord. From wherever you live, bring 2 loaves of bread to be lifted up before the Lord as a special offering. Make these loaves from 4 quarts of choice flour and bake them with the yeast. They will be an offering to the Lord from the first of your crops. Along with the bread, present 7 1-year-old male lambs with no defects, 1 young bull, and 2 rams as burnt offerings to the Lord. These burnt offerings, together with the grain offerings and liquid offerings, will be a special gift, a pleasing aroma to the Lord. Then you must offer 1 male goat as a sin offering and 2 1-year-old male lambs as a peace offering. The priest will lift up the 2 lambs as a special offering to the Lord, together with the loaves representing the first of your crops. These offerings, which are holy to the Lord, belong to the priest. That same day will be proclaimed an official day for holy assembly, a day on which you do no ordinary work. This is a permanent law for you, and it must be observed from generation to generation wherever you live. When you harvest the crops of your land, do not harvest the grain along the edges of the fields, and do not pick up what the harvest dropped. Leave it for the poor and the foreigners living among you. I am the Lord your God. Come on, Jesus. The festival of trumpets. The Lord said to Moses, give the following instructions to the people of Israel. On the first day of the appointed month in the early autumn, you are to observe a day of complete rest. It will be an official day, almost done, baby. Official day for holy assembly, a day commemorated with loud blast of trumpet. You must do no ordinary work on the day. Instead, you are to present special gifts to the Lord. Come on, Jesus. Thank you for loving the videos. The day of anointment. Then the Lord said to Moses, be careful to celebrate the day of anointment on the 10th day at the same month, 9 days after the festival of trumpets. You must observe it as an official day for holy assembly, a day to deny yourself and present special gifts to the Lord. Do not work during that entire day, because it is a day of anointment, when offerings of purification are made for you, making you right with the Lord your God. All who do not deny themselves that day will be cut off from God's people, and I will destroy anyone among you who does any work on the day. You must not do any work at all. This is a permanent law for you, and it must be observed from generation to generation. Wherever you live, this will be a Sabbath day of the complete rest for you, and on that day you must deny yourselves. This day of the rest will begin at sundown on the next day of the month, extended until sundown on the 10th of day. Come on, Jesus. What's up? What's up? All right, the festival of shelters. And the Lord said to Moses, give the following instructions to the people of Israel. Begin celebrating the festival of shelters on the 5th day of the appointment month, 5 days after the day of anointment. This festival to the Lord will last for 7 days. On the first day, the festival, you must proclaim an official day for the holy assembly, when you do no ordinary work. For 7 days you must present special gifts to the Lord. The 8th day is another holy day on which you present your special gifts to the Lord. This will be a shalom occasion, and no ordinary work may be done that day. Come on, Jesus. These are the Lord's appointed festivals. Celebrate them each year as official days for the Holy Assembly by presenting special gifts to the Lord. Burnt offerings, grain offerings, sacrifices, and liquid offerings, each on this proper day. These festivals must be observed and additional to the Lord's regular Sabbath days. And the offerings are an additional to your personal gifts, to the offerings you give to fulfill your vows, and the voluntary offerings you present to the Lord. Remember that this seventh day festival to the Lord, the festival of shelters, begins on the 15th day, the appointed month after you have harvested all the produce of the land. The first day and the 8th day of the festival will be days of complete rest. On the first day, gather branches from the magnificent trees, palms, fronds, boughs from lofty trees, and the willows that grow by the streams. Then celebrate with joy before the Lord your God for 7 days. You must observe this festival to the Lord for 7 days. Every year, this is a permanent law for you, and it must be observed in the appointed month from generation to generation. Come on, Jesus. Woo-hoo-hoo-hoo. For 7 days you must live outside in little shelters. All native-born Israelites must live in shelters. This will remind each new generation of Israelites that I made their ancestors live in shelters when I rescued them from the land of Egypt. I am the Lord your God. So Moses gave the Israelites these instructions regarding the annual festival of the Lord. Chapter 24, Leviticus chapter 24, pure oil and holy bread. This is the NLT version. Come on, Jesus, let's go. Come on, Jesus. The Lord said to Moses, command the people of Israel to bring you pure oil of present olives for the light, to keep the lamps burning continually. This is the lampstand that stands in the tabernacle in front of the inner curtain that shields the ark of the covenant. Aaron must keep the lamps burning in the Lord's presence all night. This is a permanent law for you, and it must be observed from generation to generation. Aaron and the priest must tend the lamps on the pure gold lampstands continually in the Lord's presence. You must bake 12 flat loaves of bread from choice flour using 4 quarts of flour for each loaf. Place the bread before the Lord on the pure gold table and arrange the loaves into the 2 stacks with 6 loaves in each stack. Put some pure frankincense near each stack to serve and representative offering a special gift present to the Lord. Every Sabbath day, this bread must be laid out before the Lord as a gift from the Israelites. It is an ongoing expression of the eternal covenant. The loaves of bread will belong to Aaron and his descendants, who must eat them in a sacred place, for they are most holy. It is the permanent right of the priest to claim this portion of the special gifts presented to the Lord. Come on, Jesus. An example of just punishment. One day, a man who had an Israelite mother and an Egyptian father came out of his tent and got into a fight with one of the Israelite men. During the fight, this son of Israelite woman blasphemed the name of the Lord with a curse. So the man was brought to Moses for judgment. His mother was Shelmith, the daughter of Derby of the tribe of Dan. They kept the man in custody until the Lord's will in the matter should become clear to them. Then the Lord said to Moses, take the blasphemer outside the camp and tell all those who heard this curse to lay their hands on his head. Then let the entire community stone him to death. Say to the people of Israel, those who curse their God will be punished for their sin. Anyone who blasphemes the name of the Lord must be stoned to death by the whole community of Israel. Any native-born Israelite Israelite or foreigner among you who blasphemes the name of the Lord must be put to death. Anyone who takes another person's life must be put to death. Anyone who kills another person's animal must pay for it in full, a live animal for an animal that was killed. Anyone who injures another person must be dealt with accordingly to the injury inflicted. A fracture for a fracture, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. Whatever anyone does to injure another person must be paid back in kind. Whoever kills an animal must pay for it in full, but whoever kills another person must be put to death. This same standard applies both to the native-born Israelites and to the foreigner living among you, and I am the Lord your God. After Moses gave all these instructions to Israelites, they took the blasphemer outside the camp and stoned him to death. The Israelites did just as the Lord had commanded Moses. Chapter 25, Leviticus, the NLT version. Come on, Jesus. Come on, Jesus. Let's go. Let's go. Chapter 25, the Sabbath year, Leviticus. Chapter 25, NLT version. While Moses was on a Mount Sinai, the Lord said to him, "Give the following instructions to the people of Israel. When you have entered the land I am giving you, the land itself must observe a Sabbath of rest before the Lord every 7th year. For 6 years you may plant your fields and prune your vineyards and harvest your crops, but during the 7th year the land must have a Sabbath year of complete rest. It is the Lord's Sabbath. Do not plant your fields or prune your vineyards during the year, and don't store away the crops that grow on their own, or gather the grapes from your unpruned vines. The land must have a year of complete rest, but you may eat whatever the land produces on its own during its Sabbath. This applies to you, your male and female servants, your hire workers, and the temporary residents who live with you. Your livestock and wild animals in your land will also be allowed to eat what the land produces. The year of Jubilee. In addition, you must count off 7 Sabbath years, seven sets of 7 years, adding up to 49 years in all. Then on the day of anointment, in the 15th year, blow the ram's horn loud and long throughout the land. Set this year apart as holy, a time to proclaim freedom throughout the land for all who live there. It will be a Jubilee year for you, when each of you may return to the land that belongs to your ancestors and return to your own clan. This 15th year will be a Jubilee for you. During that year, you must not plant your fields or store away any of the crops that grow on the land own. And don't gather the grapes from your uprooted vines. It will be a Jubilee year for you, and you must keep it holy, but you may eat whatever the land produces on its own. In the year of Jubilee, each of you may return to the land that belongs to your ancestors. When you make an agreement with your neighbor to buy or sell property, you must not take advantage of each other. When you buy land from your neighbor, the price you pay must be based on the number of years since the last Jubilee. The seller must set the price by taking into account the number of years remaining until the next year of Jubilee. The more years until the next Jubilee, the higher the price. The fewer years, the lower the price. After all, the person selling the land is actually selling you a certain number of harvests. Show your fear of God by not taking advantage of each other. I am the Lord your God. If you want to live securely in the land and follow my decrees and obey my regulations, then the land will yield large crops and you will eat your fill and live securely in it. But you might ask, what will we eat during the 7th year, since we are not allowed to plant or harvest crops that year? Be assured that I will send my blessings for you in the 6th year, so the land will produce a crop large enough for 3 years. When you plant your fields in the 8th year, you will still be eating from the large crop of the 6th year. In fact, you will still be eaten from the large crop when the new crop is harvested in the 9th year. Come on, Jesus. Redemption of property. The land must never be sold on a permanent basis, for the land belongs to me. You are only foreigners and tenant farmers working for me. With every purchase of land, you must grant the seller the right to buy it back. If any one of your fellow Israelites falls into poverty and forced to sell some family land, then close relatives should buy it back for him. If there is a no close relative to buy the land, but the person who sold it gets enough money to buy it back, he then has right to redeem it from the one who bought it. The price of land will discount according to the numbers of years until the next year of Jubilee. In this way, the original owner can then return to the land, but the original owner cannot afford to buy back the land. It will remain with the new owner until the next year, Jubilee. Thank you so much. Appreciate you. Thank you. We got 2 more chapters of Leviticus, and then I'm done for the day. We're almost finished with Leviticus. Praise the Lord Jesus. Come on, let's go. Well, it also says a lot of things. Do not judge thy neighbor. Don't judge thy neighbor. And also, right? Don't judge thy neighbor. Right? Cast the first stone if you never sinned before. We've sinned, right? Everyone sinned, right? Come on, Jesus. All right, the Jubilee year, the land must be returned to the original owners so they can return to their family land. Anyone who sells a house inside a walled town has a right to buy it back for a full year after its sale. What about, have you ever had sex before marriage? Have you had sex before marriage? God sees all sin the same, right? Right? We're all sinners. I'm pretty sure you had sex before marriage. I'm pretty sure, you got some piercings. Yeah, well, you think piercings are bad? Well, you probably got some piercings. Right? Come on, what's up? Weirdo. Oh my goodness. Yeah. Anyone who sells a house inside a walled town has the right to buy it back for a full year after its sale. During that year, the seller retains that right to buy it back. But if it's not bought back within a year, the sale of the house within the walled town cannot be reversed. It will become the permanent property of the buyer. It will not be returned to the original owner in the year of Jubilee. But as a house in a village, a settlement without fortified walls will be treated like property in the countryside. Such a house may be bought back at any time, and it must be returned to her original owner in the year of Jubilee. The Levites always have the right to buy back a house they have sold within the towns allotted to them, and any property that is sold by the Levites. All houses within the Levitical towns must be returned in the year of Jubilee. After all, these houses in the towns reserved for the Levites are the only property they own in all Israel. The open pasture land around the Levitical towns may never be sold. It is their permanent possessions. Redemption of the poor and enslaved. If one of your fellow Israelites falls into poverty and cannot support himself, support him as you would a foreigner or a temporary resident, and allow him to live with you. Do not charge interest or make profit at his expense. Instead, show your fear of God by letting him live with you as your relative. Remember, do not charge interest on money you will lend him or make a profit on food you sell him. I am the Lord your God who brought you out of the land of Egypt to give you the land of Canaan and to be your God. If one of your fellow Israelites falls into poverty and is forced to sell himself to you, do not treat him as a slave. Treat him instead as a hired worker or as a temporary resident who lives with you. He will serve you only until a year of Jubilee. At that time, he and his children will no longer be obligated to you, and they will return to their clans and go back to the land originally allotted to their ancestors. The people of Israel are my servants, whom I brought out of the land of Egypt, so they must never be sold as slaves. Show your fear of God by not treating them harshly. However, you may purchase male and female slaves from among the nations around you. You may also purchase the children of temporary residents who live among you, including those who have been born in your land. You may treat them as a property, passing them on to your children as a permanent inheritance. You may treat them as slaves. But you must never treat your fellow Israelites this way. Suppose a foreigner or a temporary resident becomes rich while living among you. If any of your fellow Israelites fall into poverty and are forced to sell themselves to such a foreigner or to a member of his family, they still retain the right to be bought back even after they have been purchased. They may be bought back by a brother, an uncle, or a cousin. In fact, anyone from the extended family may buy them back. They may also redeem themselves if they have prospered. They will neglect the price of their freedom with the person who bought them. The price will be based on the numbers of years from the time they were sold until the next year of Jubilee. Whatever it would cost to hire a worker for the period of time, if many years still remain until the Jubilee, they will repay the proper proportion of what they received when they sold themselves. If only a few years remain until the year of Jubilee, they will repay a small amount for their redemption. The foreigner must treat them as workers hired on a yearly basis. You must not allow a foreigner to treat any of your fellow Israelites harshly. If any Israelites have not been brought back by the time the year of Jubilee arrives, they and their children must be set free at that time, for the people of Israel belong to me. They are my servants, whom I bought out of the land of Egypt. I am the Lord your God. Chapter 26, blessings for obedience. Leviticus chapter 26, NLT version. We're getting close here. We got 2 more chapters, and then we're done for Leviticus for the day. I read the Holy Bible every single day. Make sure to subscribe to the channel, hit the bell notifications, and we're almost done with Leviticus today. Thank you, Lord Jesus. Blessings for the obedience. Do not make idols or sell up carved images. Ooh, oh my gosh. Or scattered pillars or sculptured stones in your land, so you may worship them. I am the Lord your God. You must keep my Sabbath days of rest and show your reverence for my secretary. I am the Lord. If you follow my decrees and are careful to obey my commands, I will send you the seasonal rains. The land will then yield its crops, and the trees of the field will produce their fruit. Their threshing seasons will overlap with the grape harvest, and your grape harvest will overlap with the season of planting grain. You will eat your fill and live securely in your own land. I will give you peace in the land, and you will be able to sleep with no cause for fear. I will rid the land of wild animals and keep your enemies out of your land. In fact, you will chase down your enemies and slaughter them with your swords. 5 of you will chase 100, and 100 of you will chase 10,000. All your enemies will fall beneath your sword. Come on, Jesus. I will look favorably upon you, making you fertile and multiplying your people, and I will fulfill my covenant with you. You will have such a surplus of crops that you will need to clear out of the old grain to make room for the new. Come on, Jesus. Come on, Jesus. New harvest. I will live among you, and I will not despise you. I will walk among you. I will be your God, and you will be my people. I am the Lord your God who brought you out of the land of Egypt, so you would no longer be their slaves. I broke the yoke of slavery from your neck, so you can walk with your heads held high. Come on, Jesus. Punishments for disobedience. However, if you do not listen to me or obey all these commands, and if you break my covenants by rejecting my decrees, treating my regulations with contempt, and refusing to obey my commands, I will punish you. I will bring sudden terrors upon you, wasting my diseases and burning fevers that will cause your eyes to fail and your life to ebb away. You will plant your crops in vain because your enemies will eat them. I will turn against you and you will be defeated by your enemies. These who hate you will rule over you, and you will run even when no one is chasing you. And if in spite of all this you still disobey me, I will punish you 7 times over for your sins. I will break your proud spirit by making the skies and unyielding as iron and the earth as hard as bronze. All your work will be for nothing, for your land will yield no crops and your trees will bear no fruit. If even then you remain hostile toward me and refuse to obey me, I will inflict disaster on you 7 times over for your sins. I will send wild animals that will rob you of your children and destroy your livestock. Your numbers will dwindle and your roads will be deserted. And if you fail to learn the lessons and continue your hostility toward me, then I myself will be hostile towards you. I will personally strike you with calamity and 7 times over for your sins. I will send armies against you to carry out the curse of the covenant you have broken. When you run to your towns for safety, I will send a plague to destroy you there, and you will be handed over to the enemies. I will destroy your food supply so that 10 women with need only one oven to bake bread for the families. Then will rotation your food by weight, and though you have food to eat, you will not be satisfied. If in spite of all this you still refuse to listen and still remain hostile toward me, then I will give you vent to my hostility. Myself will punish you 7 times over for sins. Then you will eat the flesh of your own sons and daughters. I will destroy your pagan shrines and knock down your places of worship. I will leave your lifeless corpse piled on top of your lifeless idols, and I will despise you. I will make your cities desolate and destroy your places of pagan worship. I will take no pleasure in your offerings that should be a pleasing aroma to me. Yes, I myself will devastate your land, and your enemies who come to accompany it to be appalled at what they see. I will scatter you among the nations. You bring out my sword against you. Your land will become desolated, and your cities will lie in ruins. Then at last the land will enjoy its neglect Sabbath years as it lies desolated while you are in exile in the land of your enemies. Then the land will fully rest and enjoy the Sabbaths in mist. As long as the land lies in ruins, it will enjoy the rest you never allowed it to take every seventh year while you lived in it. And for those of you who survive, I will demoralize you in the land of your enemies. You will live in such fear that the sound of a leaf driven by the wind will send you fleeing. You will run as though fleeing from a sword, and you will fall even when no one pursues you. Though no one is chasing you, and you will stumble over each other as though fleeing from a sword, you will have no power to stand up against your enemies. You will die among the foreign nations and be devoured in the land of your enemies. Those of you who survive will waste away in your enemies' lands because of their sins and the sins of their ancestors. But at last my people will confess their sins and the sins of their ancestors for betraying me and being hostile toward me when I have turned their hostility back on them and brought them to the land of their enemies. Then at last their stubborn hearts will be humbled, and they will pay for their sins. Then I will remember my covenants with Jacob and my covenants with Isaac and my covenants with Abraham, and I will remember the land, for the land must be abandoned to enjoy its years of Sabbath rest as, oh my goodness. Thank you, baby. Last chapter. I love you. Thank you so much, babe. For the land must be abandoned. She brought me taquitos. The land... let's see. Where we go? The land must be abandoned to enjoy its years of Sabbath rest as it lies desert. At last, the people will pay for their sins, for they have continually rejected my regulations and despised my decrees. But despite all this, I will not utterly reject or despise them while they are in exile in the land of their enemies. I will not cancel my covenant with them by whipping them out, for I am the Lord their God. For their sakes, I will remember my ancient covenant with their ancestors whom I brought out of the land of Egypt in the sight of all the nations, that I might be their God. I am their Lord. These are the decrees, regulations, and instructions that the Lord gave through Moses on the Mount Sinai as evidence of the relationships between himself and the Israelites. The last chapter, 27. Leviticus 27, we finally have the last chapter. Oh my goodness. Redemption of the gifts of offered to the Lord. The Lord said to Moses, give the following instructions to the people of Israel. If anyone makes a special vow to dedicate someone to the Lord by paying the value of the person, here is the scale of value to be used. A man between the ages of 20 and 60 and valued at 50 shekels of silver as measured by secretary shekel. A woman of that age is valued at 30 shekels of silver. A boy between the ages of 5 and 20 is valued at the 20 shekels of silver. A girl of that age is valued at 10 shekels of silver. A boy between the ages of 1 month and 5 years is valued at 5 shekels of silver. A girl that is aged and valued at 3 shekels of silver. A man older than 60 is valued at 50 shekels of silver. A woman of that age is valued at 10 shekels of silver. If you desire to make such a vow but cannot afford to pay the requirement amount, take the person to the priest. He will determine the amount for you to pay based on what you can afford. If your vow involves giving an animal that is acceptable as an offering to the Lord, any gift to the Lord will be considered holy. You may not exchange or substitute it for another animal, neither a good animal for a bad one, nor a bad animal for a good one. But if you do exchange one animal for another, then both the original animal and its substitute will be considered holy. If your vow involves an unclean animal, one that is acceptable as an offering to the Lord, then you must bring the animal to the priest. He will assess its value, and his assessment will be final. Final. Whether high or low, if you want to buy back the animal, you must pay the value set by the priest plus 20%. If someone dedicates a house to the Lord, the priest will come to assess its value. The priest's assessment will be final. Whether high or low, if the person who dedicated the house wants to buy it back, he must pay the value set by the priest plus 20%. Then the house will again be his. If someone dedicates to the Lord a piece of his family property, its value will be assessed according to the amount of seed required to plant it. 50 shekels of silver for a field planted with 5 bushels of barley seed. If the field is dedicated to the Lord, if in the year of Jubilee, then the entire assessment will apply. But if the field is dedicated after the year of the Jubilee, the priest will assess the land's value in proportion to the number of years left until the next year of Jubilee. Its assessed value is reduced each year. If the person who dedicated the field wants to buy it back, he must pay the value set by the priest plus 20%. Then the field will again be legally his. But if he does not want to buy it back and it is sold to someone else, the field can no longer be bought back. When the field is released in the year of Jubilee, it will be holy, a field specially set apart for the Lord. It will become the property of the priest. If someone dedicates to the Lord a field he has purchased, but which is not part of his family property, the priest will assess its value based on the number of years left until the next year of Jubilee. On that day, he must give the assessed value of the land as a sacred donation to the Lord. In the year of Jubilee, the field must be returned to the person from whom he purchased it, the one who is inherited it at family property. All the payments must be measured by the weight of the secretary shekel, which equals 20 grams. You may not dedicate a firstborn animal to the Lord. For the firstborn of your cattle, sheep, and goats already belong to him. However, you may buy back the firstborn of a ceremonially unclean animal by paying the priest's assessment of its worth plus 20%. If you do not buy it back, the priest will sell it at its assessed value. However, anything especially set apart for the Lord, whether a person, an animal, or family property, must never be sold or bought back. Anything devoted in this way has been set apart as holy, and it belongs to the Lord. The person especially set apart for destruction may be bought back. Such a person must be put to death. 1/10 of the produce of the land, whether grain from the fields or fruit from the trees, belongs to the Lord and must be set apart of him as holy. If you want to buy back the Lord's 10th of the grain of fruit, you must pay its value plus 20%. Count off every 10th animal from your herds and flocks and set them apart for the Lord as holy. You may not pick a choice between good and bad animals, and you may not substitute one for another. But if you do exchange one animal for another, then both the original animal and its substitute will be considered holy and cannot be bought back. These are the commands that the Lord gave through Moses on the Mount Sinai for their Israelites. Oh, next is Numbers. That is all of Leviticus. We read all of Leviticus today. Thank you, Lord Jesus. Thank you, Father God. Oh, my goodness. Thank you guys for being on here. I appreciate you. Make sure to subscribe to the channel. Tonight, we are going live with Pastor Joey Tejas tonight at 6:30 p.m. California time, whatever you want to call it. I don't know. So tonight, 6:30 p.m., we are doing a brand new podcast. We have a brand new guest. So make sure to see it tonight. If you don't watch it tonight, then make sure to watch it tomorrow on the live on this channel. Make sure to subscribe to the channel. Hit the bell notifications. Make sure to check out my Instagram, Pastor Richie the Barber. Check it out. Peace and love, you guys. Thank you so much. I got to go. I got to eat some food and do some errands. But tonight, we'll be back live at 6:30 p.m. tonight, California time. Thank you guys so much. Peace and love. We out. Love you. Later.